mom's little girl. All right, CNET, how you feeling? Great? Okay, good. And staff, how are we doing? Ready? All right, super. Just gonna
The whole
plug
thing,
in.
Sunday through Wednesday.
I'm gonna try, yes. That's the plan.
How we doing down there?
About plans, yes.
I'm good.
I, I may leave Tuesday afternoon. Something.
I call to order this College Township Council regular meeting, Thursday, March 2nd, 2023. Will all who can please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, just so everybody knows, we did have an executive session directly before this meeting. I apologize for starting a little late. We discussed a personnel matter. First item on our agenda is public open discussion. If anybody has anything, whether in person or online, that they would like to bring to council's attention that is not on the agenda, you have 5-minute comment to do so. If you are online, you can either use the raise hand feature or just turn your screen on and wave at us aggressively. Somebody will see you and we will call on you. Is there anything for open discussion? All right, seeing none. Next is new agenda items. Does council have anything to add to tonight's agenda? No? Anybody? All right. Special presentation, Parks and Rec Committee annual update. Mr. Moore, please do, yes. State your name and your position.
Hello, my name's Earl Moore. I'm the new chairperson for the Parks and Recreation.
You can lift that up if you need to.
Parks
There
and
you go.
Recreation Committee. And I'm here to give you a summary of our written report, basically,
Thank you.
because I don't want to keep us here all night. It is the objective of the College Township's Parks and Recreation Committee to encourage the township to provide parks and recreational opportunities for the residents of College Township. This includes continuing to acquire park land and recreational land, develop new parks as they're acquired, and improve existing parks, and to provide access to safe pedestrian, walking, and bicycling. It is our stated goal that every neighborhood should have a park within walking distance. Currently, the township has 25 parks totaling a little over 325 acres. This includes Thompson's Woods, Millbrook Marsh, and Stony Batter. Township parks are broken up into two groups: regional parks, which are larger parks, and neighborhood parks. General maintenance, which includes mowing, trash removal, and general upkeep of the parks, is shared with Center Region, with the Center Region taking care of the maintenance of the regional parks and township staff taking care of the others. The township also partners with other groups in the community. As part of the township's recreational programs, the township manages a nature trail in Mountainside Park, and Mountain Nittany Conservancy is a partner in overseeing the Stony Batter Natural Area. Center Soccer Association is a partner in the development of Fogelman Fields, and Center Soccer provides programs at Fogelman Fields and other township facilities. Center Basketball utilizes Spring Creek Park facility through growing their games program, and Center Region provides other recreational programs to residents and to non-residents. Some of the highlights of what occurred in the past year include a service project was completed at Carnes Crossing, which provided deep-rooted vegetation to reduce siltation and pollution runoff in Spring Creek. The Spring Creek Master Plan was completed and adopted on the 17th day of November, which was wonderful. I give kudos to everybody who worked hard on that, Amy especially. There was an asphalt revitalization in the College Township bike path. Floodlights were replaced at Slab Cabin Park for the winter sledding. Unfortunately, we really haven't had too much use for that this year. Parking at Stony Batter has been improved and is highly utilized and is an ongoing improvement project. Picnic tables were installed in Glen Park and mulch has been placed throughout the township parks. Our public works crews completed the following projects. At Glen Park, they built 2 picnic tables to replace the ones that were rotting away there. At Oak Grove, they removed dead trees and completed other general maintenance. At Mountainside, they installed a new grill inside the picnic area, and at Harris Acres, they fixed the grill in the picnic area. They repaired the section of the bike path where the tree roots were uplifting on the path. In Mount Nittany Terrace, they removed shrubs and mulch was placed in the play areas along with other general maintenance. Shamrock Park, they had mulch replaced around the play area, and at Fieldstone, the crew performed general maintenance and landscaping. At Penn Hills, after meeting with residents, mowing was altered so as to provide a natural area on the hillside, along with paths going up and down for residents. In Limerick Terrace, mulch was placed in the play area. And I didn't have it written down here, but the crew also did spraying along the bike path for
Poison hemlock.
for
Poison hemlock, yes.
poison hemlock.
Right.
Yes. The Parks and Recreation Committee faces many challenges, including updating the 5-year capital improvement plan, updating the official map, and we encourage neighborhood and community participation in improvement and renovations to the parks. We also attempt to convince developers that a plan which incorporates parkland and public amenities is worth more to the potential buyers, and so that we can ensure future generations have the land we wish to, the land to develop adequate parks and recreational spaces. To end, I would like to thank all that participated on this committee, township staff, and their undying commitment to improving life for the residents of the township. Thank you.
All right, thank you. That's a great presentation. Are there any questions for Earl or comments? Dustin?
First of all, I do want to commend the Parks and Rec, not just because I was there before I was on
Some
council.
alum we have sitting.
Just like all our ABCs, it's so great that we have the volunteers and the folks in the township willing to do this.
Definitely.
Earl, my only question to you is, when you talk about challenges, and I read through the report, they were kind of flowery, like I really want to know the dirt. Like, what do you guys really need? Do you have enough money? Do you have, is the budget adequate for Parks and Rec? Things like that. So I really want to challenge you guys and lean into that and, give us the dirt and tell us that.
Yes, and to be truthful, we discussed this at our meetings, and we try to stay within what the township is giving us to budget on, but it is barely enough for subsistence. I mean, honestly, with as many parks as we have, as much land as we have, and I understand there are budget considerations, but that's why we like to get as much involvement in as we can. It was very good to get the Spring Creek Park
Master plan.
master plan done so that we can possibly get some grant money. We might want to try to do that with other parks in the township, because any grant money we can get can help. It really helped when we did the bike path, so.
Yeah, it did.
That's about all I can say about that.
Susan?
I have no questions, but I thank you for all the work that you and the committee have done, and for everything you've detailed tonight, so thank you.
Eric?
Yeah. Well, and I see Kathy and Dave are both here, so I'm going to personally thank them along with you. But I want to follow up a little bit on what Dustin said, at least philosophically. And if COVID taught us anything, it was the value that our residents place on parks. And not just parks, but bike paths, which for all intents and purposes are linear parks. This council may be open to the idea of, instead of us coming up with a number, you coming up with needs. Not necessarily a refined wish list.
Okay.
And coming to us, and then us entering that into the budget deliberations in the context of the whole budget. Because you are the ones who are most familiar with life cycle and what is in there. I mean, you have your pulse on the needs, the park needs. And I'd much rather treat your group as a department head within the township that comes and, with their needs, and then we put them in. you know, and in years where you need more money, I think that's a fair thing for us to consider, you know, based on what you tell us why.
You're right.
But instead of us kind of, you backing into a number that we give you,
Help
Right.
us help you.
yes,
Oh, no, I get that, and we often have several times had people from the community from different areas come and ask for improvements to parks, and we try to do the best we can for them, but we realize, you know, everybody can't have that perfect park. We couldn't, the township, when I say the perfect, well, I guess we could have the perfect park, but I mean, everybody can't have a $150,000 playground in their backyard. And, you know, and we have lots of natural areas which are wonderful. I mean, this township has a wonderful amount of parkland compared to other places I've lived. So I'd like to commend the whole community for that.
Yeah.
I think we would have to talk about that concept, but I know that personally that would be my preference. And I think priorities are shifting. So instead of staying with a static number and budget, you know, we may decide that we'd rather invest more in this area than this area because that's where the community is going.
Right.
And you just make that case and help, or you make the case for what you need, and then we decide, you know, where the 52 cards get dealt out. Just my thoughts, thanks.
No, I will make sure that we look into that at our, well, we have a meeting in 2 weeks, so we'll start there. How's that?
Great. Adam?
Yeah, I think you guys have a great opportunity. I think you're working on your five-year plan at
Yes.
this point. Typically, and it's taken us a while to kind of get some alignment, but ideally, the way that this will work is Parks and Rec can work and develop a five-year plan. We can pick that up and we can begin to incorporate that into our CIP process. So the timing seems good, that you're beginning that, you know, that journey on the five-year plan development. And so, in keeping with the comments that you heard here tonight, I think that's a great opportunity to begin to try to do more of that.
And I'd have to say Amy has really helped us with understanding how the CIP works with the township and maybe giving us a better chance to develop into that.
Yeah, Madam Chair, can I add a comment to that? I wanted to challenge you guys to think outside the box too with your budgeting, not just on capital, right? As an example is the spongy moth treatment, right? You know, we allocated that from council, but that would be things that's kind of in your wheelhouse, right? You know, that's taking care of Stony Batter, so that's not necessarily a capital improvement, right?
Right.
So start thinking outside the box too for budgeting.
Okay.
All right, anything else? Anybody from the public want to speak to this, have questions, or? All righty,
All right, thank you all very much.
thank you. Next, we have reports, manager's update.
Yes, a couple of quick updates. Before I air again, last week, I'm sorry, it was last month.
Last meeting.
At the last meeting.
Last month and last week.
In discussing Pike Street, I neglected to give our township engineer the floor because he does have some information concerning the recently completed portions of the most recent Pike Street project. And I wanted to give Don the opportunity to share his information.
Yeah, well, this was called the Pike Street Traffic Calming and Pedestrian Access Project. And we wanted to see how much did it calm traffic. So we had counts taken just before the project, well, actually just before the project in '21. And those counts and speed studies showed that the average speed going, or excuse me, the 85th percentile speed going through the village was 32 miles per hour. We did a 3-week study here in February, and the 85th percentile is now down to 24.7.
Woo.
Now, the speed limit is 25, so it means that, you know, 85% of the people are going at or below that 24.7 speed, so now people are basically following the speed limit through the village there. I do have a couple trivia questions I'll throw at you. What do you suppose the ADT, the average daily traffic both ways, is in the village? Anyone want to take a wild
20.
guess? You don't get to guess at them. I think I told you.
Number of
8,000.
cars?
8,000? Yeah, okay. Any other guesses?
Come on, somebody.
6,500.
Yeah, I was gonna say 6 or 7.
75.
5870.
That's pretty.
We were in the ballpark. I feel really proud of us.
Just to contrast it against another street, Hauserville's at 2250. So, I mean, that road has a lot of traffic, and if you were there in the summer alongside the road during the construction, yeah, you know that there's a lot of traffic through
It's a
there.
lot of cars, yeah.
Okay, then my other trivia question is, what do you think the fastest speed recorded?
That's what I wanted to
in the
know.
in the 3-week period, there was 2 that were outstanding.
How fast could you possibly go on Pike Street? It's a lot of pressure.
Green light or red light?
Green, assume green.
Well, we assume it was.
Okay.
45 miles per hour.
Yeah.
Okay, was that
50, 56.
49 and 47?
Oh.
So if those motorists were going to come in, we do have awards for them.
Please come to us and let us know who you are.
And those were not like at 2 in the morning either. The one was at 6 in the morning and the other one was very similar. So it's people going to work.
Okay,
I want to work late.
late.
Okay, so that ends my report.
Okay, thank you. That was very interesting. We should do trivia.
Which is why we
More
need
often.
sidewalks.
This should be a regular event, yes.
I kind of like that, yeah.
See how long.
Thank you, Don, very
All right,
much.
thank you.
With respect to the Dale Summit Small Area Plan and our visit from DPC consultants who are going to be working with us on developing a form-based code for this area, we did on the 6th on Monday, we met with the representatives from DPC. I believe they had 4 folks that were in from, DPC is based in Miami, I believe, or in Florida. I'm
Multiple
sorry.
offices, yeah, their main base is in Florida.
But they joined us here in College Township. We took a bus tour. We had members of staff as well as the members of the RFP Review Committee participated in that. And according to Lindsay, who couldn't join us this evening because she's at the Center Region Planning Agency, I'm sorry, Center Region Planning Commission meeting this evening. Things went very well. They've completed their work here this first trip, and they departed yesterday, I believe that they left yesterday afternoon. So they're now armed with pictures and a better sense of the area, and so we'll continue to be working with them, and we will keep you posted as we have further developments with that. The solar power purchase agreement, and I know that it's on our agenda here this evening to discuss as College Township Council, but I did want to share that the College Township Water Authority met last evening to discuss their participation, and they decided to select 50% of their power to continue to stay in the process. It remains to be seen ultimately what the Water Authority will do in terms of a final determination. But at this point, they are remaining in the process and have made the pledge of at least 50% of their power needs. So, a couple of other quick things I wanted to mention. Thompson Woods Preserve. You'll note here that Ferguson Township did in fact make their appointment to the governance committee, and that is Bill Keogh. I'm sorry, Bill Keogh of Ferguson Township. He's a member of the Center Region Parks and Rec Authority, my mistake. And I have confirmed that the State College Borough has made appointments, but I'm awaiting a formal transmittal letter from the borough identifying the individuals. I don't know who they are at this point. So that's good news because we'll be able to get that moving forward, have an inaugural meeting with both governance and the advisory board and get that in motion. It's been a long time coming. And finally, the item that I wanted to mention tonight is, we talked briefly at the last meeting about the Chantel franchise agreement. I do have a revised final draft of that agreement, and I just received it today, and I anticipate introducing that to council at the meeting, our next meeting on the 15th, and begin the process to review and ultimately culminate in the adoption of an ordinance, but obviously we have to get through that review. So that's everything that I wanted to mention. If there's any questions in the manager's update, I'll be happy to try to answer.
Any questions? Okay, seeing none? Thanks, Adam. All right, next we have COG, Regional County and Liaison Reports. Susan,
I didn't have anything to
Not
report, no
soon.
meetings.
I met Jen. I printed off that list you gave me and then I just never took it out. Okay, no meetings for Susan. Eric?
I had a couple.
Okay,
Well, first, on Thursday, the 23rd, I actually attended that, responded to that invitation to attend the Discovery Science Center,
oh, nice.
and it was wonderful.
I bet it was.
It's a nonprofit children's science center, for those who don't know, and it's...
Discovery Space,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm sorry, yeah, Discovery Space Center. It's actually a children's science, they call it a children's science center, but the name is Discovery Space Center. And it's remarkable what they have in there, a number of really engaging experiences for kids, based around science and technology. And not just for school-age kids, but actually right down to toddlers. It's a wonderful resource, and I'm so happy that I attended because I really never knew. In fact, I immediately went and picked up my granddaughter and took her back there. And
Yeah.
if they didn't close, we'd still be there. But seriously, that's what it was
Absolutely.
like. So, and then Monday, Dustin and I were on the trip that Adam referenced with DPZ. Tuesday was our MPO Coordinating Committee meeting, and I just before the meeting sent out the report that staff put together. So I just note a couple of things. I was reelected chair, and Commissioner Higgins was elected vice chair to replace Commissioner Pipe. So that went well, and we had 3 new members. Josh Portney was appointed to replace John Ike from Center Region Planning Commission. Of course, Amber Concepcion, who was appointed to the Commissioner's office to replace Mike Pipe, is the second commissioner appointee. And Lon Beck, CATA board member, has the unenviable task of replacing the longest tenured MPO member from either tech or committee who retired, Dr. John Spahalski, who then, once we got into the meeting, I read the longest resolution of appreciation I've ever been associated with. And it probably still didn't do the man justice, but well earned, well deserved. It was a lengthy meeting, but you can read the.
Will do.
But I did want to know, Mike, do you have that graphic?
Jen has it here.
There was one thing, one of the actions involved something in College Township, and you recall the discussion we had and the we
Oh,
directed
along the
staff
curve.
to contact PennDOT
Yeah.
with a formal request. And lo and behold, here we are just a couple months later, we had to amend the tip because PennDOT found some money, and it's not the permanent answer, but it's a response, and it will be effective to some degree. They call these, what do they call these? Chevrons. And these will be upstream. They will be activated further upstream as traffic approaches, and the solar power then will light the flashing lights that will warn people of the turn coming up.
Could you explain which turn for people listening?
It's for the turn on the Mountain Nittany Expressway, US 322, that starts if you're heading westbound, right past the Branch Road Bridge as you're approaching East College Avenue. And it's been the scene of multiple accidents, mostly because people are driving too fast. It's not designed for the current 65 or 70 mile per hour speed limit. It was spec'd and designed and built back in the day when the speed limit was 55 miles an hour. So it should help. It certainly can't hurt, and I think we should be reasonably grateful to the responsiveness of PennDOT to at least get something up short term.
Yeah, Great.
as we work towards a more permanent and potentially even more effective solution. I participated in the Lucy, COG Lucy meeting today. No action, no items of township significance, but I will follow up with a written report. And then lastly, I just want to note that our next facilities meeting scheduled for March 7th has been moved a week later to March 14th, in part because it's spring break and we will be missing, we may struggle to get a quorum, but even more importantly, Joe Vigilon's not available. And our main agenda item is to talk about our capital improvement plan. And we really can't do that without Joe. So,
All right, thanks, Eric. Any questions for Eric? No? Okay. Justin?
I had one yesterday. I had an HR committee meeting. We reviewed and approved a job description for a part-time equipment and maintenance tech. So the full-time equipment and maintenance tech was actually hired as the captain special operations, and so we needed to fill that, and they thought the best way to fill that was with a part-time position versus the full, as they, fluctuate, we know there's flux going on in that organization. Also, we updated the job description for the assistant chief and approved that for special operations, and I just added some certification requirements. The class and comp study is we still do not have the results. We're expecting and hoping and crossing our fingers that we'll get that in April along with the presentation. And it was delayed again this time due to the fact that the consultant had a personal injury, a skiing accident, so
Careful out there.
that's all I have.
Okay, any questions for Dustin? No? All right, great. I had executive committee for COG, and then we had a COG meeting. So I think you know everything we discussed, and we'll discuss a couple extra things tonight, the finance priorities and the SPPA delegation. All right. So next, PC. Is PC here?
Oh.
PC is here. Hi.
Hi.
Planning Commission. So this is Noreen.
Yeah, I'm Noreen, and I'll be your reporter for the next month.
Great.
The Planning Commission meeting on the Tuesday, February 21st, the Roads Lane Land Development Plan was taken off was tabled and that was requested by the developer. We worked on the official map, and every commissioner had a map to take home and review, and brought their ideas and concerns to the meeting. Much of the meeting was discussing and adding shared use, bike, pedestrian paths, roadways, and general points of interest to the township. These proposals are to be added to a new draft, and an upgraded draft will be presented to the Planning Commission. Bill Sharp also suggested that the map have a grid system on it. I'm not sure I know the right name, where A's above, and so you can just say A1, and that's,
It's a really good
go
suggestion.
It's a great idea.
Reports and updates for the College Township Council and Center Region Planning Commission were given, and that was the meeting.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Any questions for Noreen? No? All right. Thank you so much. Good report. All right, that brings us to diversity, equity, and inclusion reports. As always, the public is invited to speak on this issue. We do have a couple of items on this agenda, under this agenda item tonight. One, Mike, if you could speak to that email you sent earlier about the website.
Sure. So as we discussed, I believe it was a couple meetings ago at this point, staff had been doing some investigations into how to put a presence up on our website in the mold of DEI to talk a little bit about a calendar, essentially, what's going on each month, what month-long observances are occurring, as well as specific holidays that are addressed. I have to tip my cap to our neighbors in Ferguson Township. We recognized what they had on their website as a good starting point, a good model for us to replicate, and we did that. We stole liberally from what Ferguson's Township's model was, and we have posted a DEI initiatives and calendars or calendar web page on the College Township website. So if you go under the government tab at the top of the website, and Jen, see, you're ahead of the curve there. If you go under the government tab at the top of our website, you can go on and see. We also have some links to activities and events going on at the Penn State
great.
University, as well as an opportunity for the public. We recognize we know what we don't know in terms of DEI initiatives and acknowledgements. So we have an opportunity there for the public to reach out to staff and suggest items that could fall under this agenda item, and then may ultimately gravitate to the website. We anticipate that this will continue to grow and develop over time, but this is our initial starting point in the website, and like I said, we hope that this is a good place to start, to build up and continue to do better.
Great, that's a good start. That's how things change, is we get started, right? And then move forward. So, like Mike said, any public input about that page on our website is welcome. So please do interact with us in that way. All right, next, I am excited to bring forth a proclamation to recognize February as Black History Month on March 2nd. Because again, we start where we can start. It's never too late to move forward. So I'd just like to give kudos to Leslie Lang and Gary Abdullah and Tracy Mariner for providing us the template to start with and for requesting this. Without any further ado, I will go ahead and read the proclamation. College Township, Center County, Pennsylvania, Proclamation P2301. A proclamation of the Township of College, Center County, Pennsylvania, to officially recognize Black History Month. Whereas each year Black History Month is observed in February, and whereas the origins of Black History Month date back to 1915 when Dr. Carter G. Woodson founded the organization known today as the Association for the Study of African American Life and History, and whereas Black History Month is a chance to celebrate Black achievement, provide a reminder to take stock of where systemic racism persists, and give visibility to the people and organizations creating change, whereas the theme for 2023 is Black Resistance and explores how African Americans have resisted historic and ongoing oppression in all forms since the nation's earliest days, and whereas it is essential that we take note of the accomplishments, hardships, achievements, and struggles of Black Americans and take time to celebrate the immeasurable contributions of the descendants of enslaved peoples in our neighborhoods, our township, our country, and our society. Now, therefore, the College Township Council does hereby proclaim the month of February 2023 as Black History Month and acknowledge the national theme of Black resistance. We would like to put emphasis on the importance of being an ally to marginalized communities for all 365 days in a year. This proclamation authorized the second day of March 2023 by the College Township Council, Center County, Pennsylvania. Before we accept a motion, we have a couple people who would love to speak to the issue.
So this is a good time for a few remarks.
Absolutely, thank you.
All right. Ladies first.
Hi, I'm Tracy Mariner, and I just want to say that we profoundly appreciate College Township for your willingness to issue this proclamation in recognition of African American History Month in March of 2023, especially given the extraordinary effort required to respond to our entreaty on such short notice. For this reason, we feel that you should be lauded. The Center Region's African American community has received supportive proclamations issued for this month from Patton Township, the Bureau of State College, Ferguson Township tonight, and our Center County Commissioner, who issued the very first Black History Month proclamation for the county. The White House also issues an annual proclamation for African American History Month, and while some would bridle at what they say as a purely symbolic gesture, we as a community representatives receive it as a clear statement of purpose for the Central Region to take a public stance on the importance of establishing a welcoming climate for everyone who lives, works, and studies here in our community. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, I want to kind of follow up on some of the things that Tracy mentioned.
Can you just say your name?
Oh.
Quick.
Hi, I'm Gary Abdullah. I live on Coons Lane.
Thanks, Gary.
And as she mentioned, most of the Center Region Council of Government members, member organizations were approached by community leaders from the CCU, which is the Campus and Community United organization, to issue proclamations in support of African American History Month for this year. I'm happy to lend my voice in support of the idea because I see it as a symbolic act, again, that can have a direct impact on our community's welcoming climate. Saying that you support Black history is really kind of uncontroversial. It's kind of like saying, yes, I know there's a Plymouth Rock, you know. That history is already settled. Black history, along with Plymouth Rock, is there. But it gives our community leaders an occasion to speak in support of portions and of people who may not always find a welcoming environment in all parts of Happy Valley. So rather than waiting to respond after some unfortunate negative incident, like for instance, Confederate flags on parade in Dulesburg, or families being castigated for speaking Spanish in a public restaurant, and both of those incidents did happen here in Happy Valley. This gives you, our leaders, a chance to set a positive tone in advance. We appreciate that you've made an exceptional effort to produce a proclamation and the positive statements given the crunch of the timeline. Again, we have reached out to a number of different member organizations, and thank you very much for being willing. So again, I can't take any credit for this, and probably most of us are participants, but not the instigators. The idea for the proclamation was really kind of a groundswell from other quarters of the Black community. But I definitely can applaud your efforts and your heart and your contribution to a welcoming environment. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. For those listening, I am Carmen. I will introduce myself as I go along tonight. It is a privilege to stand before the council tonight alongside Elder Gary Abdullah and Tracy Mariner in regards to the proclamation of College Township to officially recognize Black History Month each year as observed in February. Further, on behalf of longtime Center County resident and State College NAACP Educational Co-Chair Leslie Lang, and certainly on behalf of the indelible Black student population in State College, particularly those at Penn State University whose daily contributions to and with the local community far exceeds adherence to their respective degrees. For those who do not know me, I am Carmen Wong, a Bunsen Waller Graduate Fellow at Penn State, pursuing a dual title PhD in English and African American and Diaspora Studies. I was a first-generation undergraduate student and now am a first-generation graduate student. Proudly, I am the first in my family to graduate with a terminal master's degree obtained in 2020 before settling in State College during two historic and contemporaneous movements that would eventually change the face of our world, that would propel us to think exorbitantly about the future of the world we wish to live in. In my move to State College, I became part of one of the largest, if not the largest cohort of Black students accepted into the graduate program in English, made possible by ongoing protests around the world for the regard of Black lives and public demands for social justice and racial equity. I moved here in 2021 in the wake of a global pandemic that amplified and made visible disproportionate access to resources among racial, classist, gendered, and ableist divisions and divisions of privileges. During an unprecedented moment that propelled many of us to consider furthermore in our present day which side of history we wish to exist on. Additionally, I'm an instructor of creative writing and Black poetry at Center County Correctional Facility and a curator of community-involved arts and literary programming in State College. And if that isn't remarkable enough, I stand before you tonight as the first in my family to have been raised in the United States, immigrating to this country at a young age from Georgetown, Guyana. So I am an immigrant, an abolitionist, Black and woman. I am a pillar of hope and an agent of change, a consistent teacher of Black literature and a perpetual student of Black history. As part of my graduate research appointment at Penn State University, I have spent over a year recovering archival materials of 19th century Black residents in Center County, which is recovering the intimate and accurate and inconspicuous history of College Township. I said earlier that I stand before you with a proclamation for Black History Month, but I also stand before you in recognition of what that means. When Black History Week was initiated by Dr. Carter G. Woodson and observed as early as 1926, it emerged as a designated period to celebrate the accomplishments and contributions made by Black people all year. Contrary to racist belief, it is not created under the pretense of magnifying selective history, but was instead organized to recognize, quote, the history of the world void of national bias, as mentioned in the 1943 issue of the monthly newsletter, Negro History Bulletin, created by Dr. Carter G. Woodson. And so when we proclaim Black History Month as we now know it, this is not only the acknowledgement of our existence, but of an organized resistance towards the calamity of colonial erasures. Black History Month is a period to reflect, to recollect, to rejoice, to gather, to hope, to commune, and to hold fast to every single event that has collectively shaped who we are, how we see ourselves, and what that means in the context of how others choose to see us. Black History Month is also a concept, an intellectual, social, and political understanding, moreover, a continuous insistence on the very possibility of a more liberated, educated, and equitable world. In closing, I'll say this. This is a very, very, very salient issue, as it has always been, but more so, these proclamations and conversations are especially important ones to be having now as this country witnesses a brutal attack on our civil rights, our personal freedoms, and our educational institutions and curriculums. History has shown us that it does not end simply with anti-Black rhetoric from governors in Florida or Texas, or mayors cutting citywide educational budgets, or legislators banning books. It does not end there. It does not end in one state or one place, or with the insidious act, with one insidious act. The onslaught of Black history in general manifests a world wherein we are all censored, where women are spoken to as second-class citizens and Black people are treated as third, and the humanity of Black, queer, disabled people are significantly unprotected or neglected by statewide and federal law. So Black History Month is a movement towards freedom. It is a movement for agency of Black people and those who care very deeply about what is going on in our current world. We have a lot of work to do, and it can be done, starting right here with Pennsylvania, with all of us. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
I feel like I should stand up and clap.
Right, bring poetic cadence to College Township Council meetings whenever you can.
Would you be interested in doing the photograph now, or is this something?
No, I'm gonna give a moment for a motion to pass the proclamation, and then we will have a 5-minute recess for the picture. So that's great. First, I would just like to thank all three of you for coming tonight and presenting your perspectives on this proclamation. It's really an important piece. And particularly to the young woman, Carmen Wong, for being a part of the next generation and engaging in local government at your age. It's quite commendable. The bravery and the power that you come to us with, I hope it inspires others. So thank you for that. All right, without further ado,
I'd like to make a motion to accept the proclamation.
Second.
all right, any further?
I'm still in that emotional part.
Any further comment?
Yeah, you know, I got to say this, as an aging baby boomer, I oftentimes have a cynical view of the next generation of our leaders and where they're going to come from. And right now, I feel pretty good about that next generation of leaders. So, thank you.
Okay, great. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Motion passes. All right, thank you. 5-minute recess.
Yeah. I mean, who wouldn't?
Went a little long there.
Good 5 minutes.
Once you're at the
All right.
so small.
Anything else under diversity, equity, and inclusion? Before I close that item? Okay. Consent agenda. Give me a second while I pull it up. This is in supplemental, right?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, the consent agenda for March 2nd, 2023. CA1, approval of the February 16th regular meeting minutes and the February 27th special meeting minutes. CA2, receipt approval of the following correspondence. A, email from Josiah Newman, February 16th, regarding College Township Water Authority pressure increases. B, letter from Pentair Engineering, February 16th, time extension for Stalker Body Shop, land development plan to June 10th. C, email from Sean Houts, February 17th, regarding residential rental ordinance. D, email from Daniel Materna, February 17th, regarding the casino. E, letter regarding the Paterno Family Beaver Stadium Run. F, letter from Representative Paul Takak, January 23, regarding introduction as the newly elected representative for the 82nd District of the PA House of Representatives. G, email from Daniel Materna, February 22nd, regarding the casino. H, email from Tom Ertzgaard, February 25th, regarding LTAC Center Hills Village traffic calming. And I, email from Daniel Materna, February 25th, regarding the casino. CA3, approval of resolution R-23-10, which is the appointment of alternate member to the Planning Commission. And that's in there, or should I state his name now?
You can state his name now.
Okay,
please.
Ashad Tumians as alternate to the Planning Commission. All right, does anybody want any of those pulled?
CA2A.
2A?
A2, C, and E.
Anything, Susan? All right, can I have a motion to accept everything but CA2A, C, and E?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 All right, Eric?
Yeah, I heard from a number of people about this, both in person and by email. So I went out and I talked to a plumber I know that's been installing a lot of them. And I just want to make sure I understand the background here. According to the plumber, who's a second or third generation local plumbing business, any house built within the last 20 to 30 years, code requires these pressure regulators to be in place. So we're talking about houses that were built and put online prior to that. And in many cases, should we say, I've got to think about, remember how he explained this to me. I just want to make sure that that is indeed the case, is that we're really just talking about folks whose house was built, let's say, prior to 1995, somewhere in that area. And at that time, or somewhere in that time, they were still being served by a private water company, Lamont Water Company. So part of this is the transition from the private water company to the College Township Water Authority, and what would normally be a very welcome improvement and change has just got caught, because of the age of some of the homes, and at the time, with Lamont Water Company, water pressure was minimal at best, so this was not even really a consideration, or certainly not needed. So it was, is most of that correct?
Yeah, most of that is correct. Amy and I are hopefully can tag team a little bit here to address the issue. But yeah, I think that's a great way.
That's his response to me.
It's spot on. It's highly accurate. Essentially, ever since the early 90s, mid 90s, these have been required by code as far as installations and construction. And yes, many homes, older homes in the village of Lamont, for example, and as you said, homes built maybe in the 80s that had been serviced by the Lamont Water Company did not have pressure-reducing valves.
Nor did they really ever need
And they didn't
it.
really require them either. And recognizing that what we have done is in creating a new pressure zone as part of the service that will be provided to the new student housing complex. And by creating that new pressure zone, we're actually going to be improving pressures in an area that has historically had very low pressure. We wanted to be sure, and we notified those residents that would be impacted, that they needed to be certain that check and make sure whether or not they had one, whether or not it was working properly, but if they didn't have one, that they needed to reach out and have one installed by a local or a licensed plumber. And that is essentially what the piece of correspondence that you have received this evening is speaking to. But you're absolutely correct in what you heard from the local plumber. Amy, is there anything more that we need to add to that?
No, I mean, I don't think so. I believe if we go through the authority's long-term planning, we had always had it in the back, mind of increasing the pressure,
what I was
doing
gonna ask.
something to be able to deal with. And it's Oak Ridge Avenue is the highest in the system, has the lowest pressure. So I know that was something, this just was an opportunity that afforded itself because we had to be able to provide fire flow to the development. And actually, they ended up paying for a good portion of the off-site improvements.
And that's the part that I think got lost in that when I read CA2A.
Yeah.
Is that there is a perception that this is something being, this burden is being put on people as a direct result of the development, when I guess in a way that's true. But what we heard through that whole rezoning redevelopment process was the problems with low water pressure on Oak Ridge and Shamrock.
Right.
And in fact, according to the plumber, many of those people had to invest in pumps because the pressure is so low. So the way I saw it was we were leveraging the opportunity with the developer in such a way that we received a significant contribution, financial contribution, which is actually paying for the improvement and structure to get the higher water pressure. But one of the side effects is that those people had such low pressure for so long, now instead of a pump, they need a regulator, which is unfortunate because I think it's souring a bit of something that should be a celebrated improvement in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping there's something that we can do to maybe help mitigate that.
How many houses were,
Oh,
did you send that letter to?
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head, but it was basically all of Center Hills, Daleview,
Oh, yeah.
the other,
Greenbrier.
Wow.
Greenbrier and all of, it's a very large area,
Okay.
so. And of course, there are older sections and newer sections,
So some have that valve and
Oh,
some
yes,
don't?
absolutely, yes.
Probably around 200 or so.
Are you raising your hand? I can't.
Yes.
If you want to, you can come to the
Earl's in
lectern.
that zone.
I'm the farthest one from anywhere. I have the lowest pressure probably in the whole neighborhood. I did. My name's Earl Moore from Oak Ridge Avenue. First, I want to say that when the project below us first came into existence, I actually came to council to ask if they could do something about improving our water pressure. And the problem I'm seeing from the neighborhood is not the increase in pressure so much or the cost of the valves, which some of the plumbers are getting ridiculous about, but the fact that they were going to do it gradually and we had a 20-pound per square inch jump immediately, almost.
Right.
Which took us from 25 pounds to 50 pounds of pressure. And it wasn't gradual like we expected it to be.
Right, and that was trial and error, if I could answer to that. And you should be getting correspondence. I did send out a letter to kind of explain that, and because it had to do with the equipment and trying to operate it, the differential in pressure needed to be that.
But like I said, I understand there's a perception problem, but myself am very thankful for the difference. I can take a shower now and my wife can turn the washing machine on. And I don't have to scream at her.
So it was a little bit about just the implementation. Is that what I'm hearing for Earl?
Did anybody
Yes,
have
so-
damage due to that?
I don't
Oh.
No, I've not had any
Okay.
calls on
I
that.
saw one person, they just had a blow-off valve on the furnace unit.
Okay, okay, that, so when people did receive the letter, they immediately went out and called a plumber. Those who did it were those who had probably some of the worst pressure. Well, then without us bumping the pressure up, they had even worse pressure. So we had to do something to at least give the people who had started the process. The other thing is the timing of the letter. You couldn't wait until the very last minute to send it out because obviously there were enough people who might have to get a plumber. So it was very difficult when we were out there that particular day to operate the system properly, to get this pressure zone where we wanted to. We actually did. The only way it could work and still have the fire flow that we needed was a 20 pounds increase, which
Got it.
was not anticipated.
Thank you, Amy.
Hi, I'm Liz Kissenweather. I live on Oak Ridge Avenue, 954. So we were actually out of town when the water pressure increase happened. So when we came home, we were like pleasantly surprised that the water pressure went up. But we also had not done the renovations that we needed to. So we had to scramble to find a plumber. Our neighbor did have some leakage in their pipes, and they're getting it fixed now. So I guess my question is, when is there going to be another pop in pressure, and when will that
Yes.
happen?
So the letter that will be sent out, or was sent out, you should be getting it. Because we know spring break is here, we will not be doing anything until mid-March. So the week after spring break, I think at the 14th, we have someone scheduled to come in to help assist with the next bump in pressure. I don't know if it will be the last one or if it will be at another step.
Okay, because I know the residents are trying to find a plumber to do this, because they're backed up.
Of course, yeah.
They have so much work on Oak Ridge Avenue and all the areas right now that they're booked out. So I don't know if there's a way to figure
Delay.
that out so that there's really no damage that happens.
Well, I mean, certainly we can, there should be no reason why we can't leave it where it's at. The work we have to do on the 14th is with a rep from the company. But if we can at least address what we need to, we can still look at maybe holding the pressure for a little bit longer.
Because I know all the neighborhood in Oak Ridge, we're all exchanging plumber names. It's
Yeah.
like, where do you find them?
Yeah, we do, I mean, this all has to happen before the final occupancy, because that's the whole key, is to make sure that we have the required flow that is needed at the development, which we anticipate to be end of summer, so we do have some time. The original letter, we were hoping to have hit like mid-April or so for the final bump, but again, as I mentioned before, once we realized that the equipment was too sensitive to have such a small increase, we had to bump it up, and we're going to hold that for now. So I can certainly see if we can hold it. There should be no reason why we can't hold it where it's at until we are ready to bump it up again.
Is that also going on in our alert system too? When, like, today we're gonna bump it, right?
That's a good point. That's not something that we did the last time. I think this next time around, whenever we're getting ready to do that, we can give
Okay.
people plenty of advance.
Yeah.
Again, I think this was something that was done to try to address an issue that we had absolutely not anticipated, which was the rapidity in which some folks were able to get those pressure reducing valves and the corresponding lack of pressure that they ended up with. Plus fiddling with the fire flows as well and ensuring that those were where they needed to be. But I do think going forward that we can better utilize that system that we have.
Cool.
Yeah, good idea. That was a good idea, Dustin. All right, Dustin, C and E?
Yeah, can I just do E first and then we'll go to C?
I guess so.
So E is the Paterno run, and I just wanted to gauge, whether we see fit to donate, or have you done that in the past, or?
I can speak from a budgetary standpoint, it's not something that council has participated in directly, but there's no reason at the direction of council that it cannot do so.
Do you have any feelings on it?
I don't have any strong feelings one way or the other. I just wanted to put it out there for consideration.
No, I don't, but I would, given the fact that this resides in our township, at least the ending point, start and end point, I would have no problem making some level, we do contribute to similar other type events.
We do.
so,
Fourth Fest, first
Right.
night.
Yes,
Yeah.
I think if we do that, then we should support them.
So maybe there's no number in that, is there?
No.
No, no.
So maybe staff could suggest a number they
Number,
feel is
recommended number.
consistent and doesn't set any,
Yeah, I mean, the Fourth Fest is a larger event typically, and more involved in College Township specifically, traditionally. And I think that we have provided $2,500 for that. First night, we made a contribution through
The
purchasing
sculpture.
one of the sculptures, and I believe that was $350 this last year, so, or this year. So I think that's kind of the range in terms of
Right. these
type of community-based contributions that we have.
Okay, so $200, is that?
I'm comfortable with something in that range.
Sure.
You know, staged proportionately to the impact. It's not Fourth Fest. First night is probably of higher value than $350, whatever we pay for that. But they don't ask, that's all they ask for,
They,
right?
that is historically
Yeah.
what we started with, and we've never been asked to really do considerably more than that.
Well, this race has grown from, 6 racers probably in 2007 to thousands now. So I think it's a good event, and it raises money for Special Olympics, so I think it's a worthy cause.
Yeah. Okay.
So something in that range?
Yeah, let's go with 2.
500, 1,000?
Oh, 500?
We
I
could
think
save time by
500 is
giving them a
reasonable.
number. Okay.
I had started at 2, so you just double and a half my
It's a nice even round number.
5. Great, go for it.
Very good, will do. Taken care of.
All right, and back to C.
Yeah, back to C. I wanted to bring it up because I know that Mr. Houts is here tonight, so I wanted to bring up and whether or not he wanted to speak to his email as well as get any staff reflections on the email. And this has to do with the rental ordinance.
Mr. House?
Yeah, can certainly speak.
Sure. Can you keep it to 3 minutes?
Yeah, I can be brief.
Perfect.
I'm Sean Houts. I live in the Clover Highlands neighborhood on Glengarry. I've been a resident of College Township, I guess, for, I don't know, 32 years combined, I guess. We've, I guess, in the process of taking care of my grandparents, kind of got into, which was kind of a losing, a losing business proposition, and taking care of their property and actually acquiring some of their debt and along the way. I kind of got into landlording a little bit, and I guess the property, I guess in the correspondence that I sent to Dustin was about a specific property on Trout Road that I began renting a few years ago, following the process, or I guess so I thought, a property that had been long-term rented and then converted to short-term, or I guess a mixed use, and so I guess it's kind of been for several years you've rented to people as transitional housing, so a lot of people kind of between houses moving to the area, for short-term work, and then of course football season and weekends in the fall. I guess I was a little bit troubled by the correspondence I got that I was in violation, because I did have a rental permit, and when I obtained that rental permit, the options were kind of like intermittent or long-term. And it was a full-time rental, so it wasn't a situation where it was a weekend house. That was my own house that I was renting. Anyway, so I guess as I've understood. Sorry, I think I've already taken up 2 minutes, but I guess the time that the ordinance was being changed, I was actually in grad school and homeschooling, I guess, my own kids while they were home during COVID. So we're all at home taking classes together, which I don't recommend to anyone, but So I just, I wasn't, at that time, did not have the opportunity to be engaged, I guess, and understand maybe some of the changes that were coming down the pipeline. And so when I got the correspondence again, I was a little bit confused, and I did come to get clarification. And it seems like that maybe I missed an opportunity that I could have had to cure the situation to obtain a short-term rental permit. As I understand from the zoning office, that other property owners were made aware of the change, and were able to come in and file for, I guess it's the short-term permit and have a long-term permit, even though they weren't currently short-term renting their properties. So I just want the same opportunity to do that, to continue to offer something that I think isn't as common, which is that transitional housing, which I'm actually currently doing at the property right now, a couple weeks here, 2 months there.
Right.
But that's not sustainable throughout the year, given kind of when most people are kind of moving between homes. So I just ask for your consideration in being able to do that.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. And just to add to that, that's what, I kind of keyed in on. And I know we talked about this as a new ordinance, and we want to review it and look at it. And where I saw in reviewing the ordinance, it really hit with that transitional housing, the way that Sean's offering it, that the ordinance prohibits that, because it has to be owner occupied, right? So someone that comes in that might be here for a few months.
Just let Mark speak to that briefly.
Yeah.
Our short-term rental ordinance, for transitional housing, we define short-term as 14 consecutive nights or less.
Right.
So there would be nothing to preclude Mr. Houts from renting that property for 2 week,
Okay.
for 2 week increments and that would suit the bill for the transitional.
And that's actually across the board for other
Yes.
short-term, that's really low. That's like a
Yes.
super low bar. Other places are 45 days, 90 days. Yeah.
Yes. I think council did a very good job putting this together. This ordinance seemed like it took forever to get through, but everything was gone through. I can say when Mr. Houts, the prior rental applications, there were 3 choices. I intend to rent long-term, I intend to rent intermittent, I intend to rent long-term and intermittent.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, we don't need to, this is just a consent agenda item, so we don't
Yes.
necessarily need to go
So,
over who said what, he said, she said, but
This would fit anything other than the
Yeah.
football weekend.
Okay.
the thing I'm hearing is it's been a couple years now to have the short-term rental ordinance, maybe a year and a half. How long's
Yes.
it been? About it.
This was this is our first real
This is our first
renewal.
full year of
Okay.
the revised ordinance. We have had a short-term
Right,
rental
sorry, the
ordinance.
revised ordinance. Okay.
We've had a short-term rental ordinance for probably 7 years, but we did revise it substantially
Okay.
just last year.
All right.
However, though, right, and I know, and I understand, my understanding of the ordinance, and I wasn't present when it was drafted, I was present when it was approved. My understanding was to avoid the idea that we had perhaps a bunch of houses sitting vacant that were just being used on the weekend for football games, right? And so much of an assumption. What if I'm a businessman and I come in and I need to stay at a place for a week, right? 2 weeks is the magic number. Right now, our ordinance prohibits that, unless it's an owner-occupied facility. So something like Sean might have, somebody comes in and says, hey, I need to be in town for a week. I need to be in town for 5 days.
I mean, I would recommend that if this is something that you want council to look at again and have on our agenda, then we need to add it to our agenda.
Yeah.
So, I think it's a little soon to put it back on, only being a year in, but if we can, you can bring that up at, under other matters, and we can talk about it as far as getting it added to a future agenda.
Yeah, the intention always was, I think we started September, October of last year, and the intention was to go somewhere between 6 months and a year.
Okay.
Before we were taking notes along the way,
Right.
identifying situations that
Didn't quite fit, yeah.
didn't quite fit, that we hadn't contemplated before we came back, maybe with some staff recommendations, or at least an identification of what those issues were, so that council could vet those, and we could have discussion and make any modifications as you felt necessary to the ordinance. So that was always the intention.
Yeah, great. So I think,
Yeah, that's really all I'm requesting
Yeah.
is we get it back on with those recommendations and considering, you know.
I've got it
We've
noted.
had a couple, right?
I've got it noted.
Yeah.
No, there's
There've been a
plenty
few.
of opportunities.
Absolutely,
right?
absolutely. Okay, with that, I will accept a motion to approve 2A, 2C, and 2E.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion?
I just want to thank you for your service to the township, both council and staff. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
See, I almost forgot. Motion passes, thank you. All right, so that is consent agenda. Moving on to old business, LTAC, recommendation for bid. Why did I forget what that word was? Okay. Just give me a second to get back to the other packet. And Mr. Franson, do you want to take us away?
Well, yeah, you
Well,
wrote
it
the
says
memo.
D. Franson on the agenda.
We can both speak to this. I'll just set up. We at our last meeting on the 16th of February, we had a presentation by the chair of LTAC, Don Hartzell was here, to convey two things: the results of the neighborhood vote, which qualified as an actionable vote on all levels. Overwhelming support for the proposed 14 speed humps on 7 on Oak Ridge, 7 on Shamrock, as well as LTAC's recommendation to council to move forward with that process. As a result of conversation discussion by council at that time, staff was directed to seek additional information from the township's traffic engineer, which is Trans Associates, which we did. And Dawn, at this point, I'll just kick it back over to you.
Yes,
Talk a little bit about
Trans suggested, we asked them what were the next two best options if we weren't able to do 7. And they came up with 4 and 5 on both roads. And if anyone was looking through there, you can see where they X'd out the ones that they would not do. And then I asked them, I said, well, what's kind of a time frame to get it bid out, where you would have a base bid and 2 bid alternates? And they thought they could get it out in about 3 or 4 weeks. And then I said, well, what kind of a time frame do you think for construction? And even with the 7 and 7, it was about 3 weeks also. So the plan preparation, a month, we'll just round it up, and construction a month, rounding it up. Now, if you put it out to bid, it'll take a month for the bids from the time you put it out to the time you get them in. Once you get them in an award, then you have another month for bonds and insurance. So this is something that can be done easily this summer, if we want to go ahead with it at that. But
Okay, yeah, thanks. So we're going to start with discussion amongst council. I see some people in the room. I presume that you're here for this item, and some people online. I'm gonna assume the same. So we will open it up to the public for your comments, and I'll just give more instruction at that point. All right, Eric, I'm gonna give you the start.
Oh,
Oh,
well, no, that's fine.
Okay.
In light of the staff's proposed recommendation, you guys aren't gonna really like to hear what I have to say, so, but I gotta say it. I said it 2 weeks ago. I've thought about it, I've talked to folks, and you guys also know, I wasn't sure if I was gonna be here tonight because of my travels, so I put my thoughts in writing. That way I'll be far more concise than I was 2 weeks ago, hopefully. So just to review what I had talked about last week was that on this project, we recognized the need, we committed to addressing it, and we negotiated significant contribution from the developers to offset the cost of whatever we came up with through the process. We established a successful process, or LTAC, for determining the specifics of the mitigation that engages the community and specifically the residents most affected, so we handed it off to them. After extensive deliberations and with the aid of professional engineers, the committee presented a proposal to council that represented what the committee and professional traffic engineers determined to be the most effective and efficient solution. We, as council, with the same opportunity to support or not that proposal, just like we did with the first proposal that we kicked back to them, then endorsed this proposal plan, and it went before the residents for the vote. The residents, in turn, overwhelmingly supported the proposed plan. So, for me, as I stated last week, and I don't feel any differently now, in my opinion, anything other than support for the plan as it came out of the process, the process that we ourselves established, in my opinion is, like I said 2 weeks ago, disingenuous of council and possibly more importantly, disrespectful of the efforts of LTAC and the residents. Now, 2 weeks ago, I'm willing to listen to discussion and certainly entertain other opinions tonight. But 2 weeks ago, I heard a couple of concerns in the discussion that I believe led to the direction that we gave, that some of us gave staff to look at the options. And the first was budget. And, I got to go back to the very deliberate process we went through with the land development plan, where we as a council, now I know we have different members now, and I respect that, but we did commit to mitigation, and that mitigation wasn't contingent on it costing a certain amount. We didn't put a not to exceed amount on it. We said philosophically, we've got your back, we're going to do this. And we got a significant contribution from the developer that, based on the projections that we got, the cost projections that we've gotten from Trans, should cover most of the costs of this project. So for me, to do what appears is giving the perception of backtracking now and doing some second guessing, both on the cost and the plan, with the scale back option on the proposal, with all due respect, it's been vetted by LTAC, and so with all due respect, I feel that at a minimum, it's premature to make any adjustments to the plan before we see what the bid is. And even then, and this is jumping ahead a little bit, even if it costs us a few more dollars, we just decided to spend $500 tonight on the Paterno thing. We've made adjustments in the budget on the fly as we move through the years for things that we've deemed important and high priorities. So I think most importantly, it's disrespectful of the project to make assumptions ahead of time that in some ways discredits the process before we know what the budget numbers are. And then the second concern I heard, and I understand it, that it could be a valid concern, was that maybe the school district and the EMS folks who participated through the whole process maybe didn't share concerns that they might have had with it. Although given the opportunity through the whole process, they did. Now, if I was them sitting in there representing the school board, I would not be jumping up and down endorsing this project, because it's sure going to take the school buses probably longer to get through the neighborhood. And time is money. So if I'm representing the business interests of the school district, I'm not going to enthusiastically support this, but at the same time, they didn't come out and say that there was a safety or a health and safety or any life-threatening issues associated with it. Same with EMS. They had their opportunity. So I know you don't need my vote to move this forward, but absent some convincing arguments tonight, it's going to be really hard for me to support the motion as presented, because I really think we ought to go through with the plan and get the bids on the plan as presented before we back up for other considerations. So I respect everyone else's opinion, I just philosophically disagree with the staff's proposal, but I'm willing to listen.
Thanks, Eric. Dustin?
Yeah,
I'm sorry, applause is not appropriate in a public discussion
just a couple
like this.
questions before I give my thoughts. So did Trans give estimates on how much they thought it would cost?
Yeah, they're saying 5,000 a hump.
Speed hump, right? So
Yeah.
5,000 per speed hump, right? And that's what we based our budgetary amount off of, right? And what was the contribution?
Originally it was 50,000. We probably have about 30-some thousand now in engineering.
Okay.
And they said it'd be another 5 for the contract documents.
Yeah. And just so you know, I have the utmost respect for Eric. I have the utmost respect for the people in Center Hills and the utmost respect for this process. I failed to see your perspective on us not going through and getting the process when we are still getting the bid for the 14 speed humps. We're just now at the same time, for efficiency purposes, getting the alternate bids. And to me, and from my perspective, that just shows good fiscal responsibility for the township and ensuring that, hey, you know what, we haven't gone way out of bounds with budget. Just in case. I full-heartedly support the 14. I hope it comes in at budget or, you know, within a reasonable amount to where we can extend that budget. 100%. But I just want to have efficiency and timely sake, right, that, hey, we do something, right? Now, I always go back to when I first started hearing about this when I was a new council member. And I remember Paul sitting here and saying, let's do something, right? Doing nothing is not an option. So, you know, to kind of reiterate a little bit what Rich was saying last time, if this comes in at outlandish at 14 speed humps, I mean, we have a responsibility to the remainder of the township to, you know, try to get a good cost on this. And that's why I asked for the alternate bids. I hope that we have, you know, that we can get the 14 without any issues at all. You know, and I would even support us going back and maybe negotiating even more of a contribution if it gets too much for us. I don't know if that's possible, but, you know, I think there's other ways to do this as well. But that's where I just want a timeliness, that's it.
Because it takes more time to get more bids,
Right, yeah.
Okay. Susan?
Yeah, I'd like to say I do agree with what Eric has said so far. My experience coming into this at the point that I have come into it and looking at the process, I felt strongly that there were opportunities in the process for those voices to be heard. And in that process, to move forward to the steps that we took, getting this to the neighborhood vote and getting the overwhelming majority of votes back and in favor of the 14 humps, I became concerned about sort of alignment with our values and concerns about, you know, earning and maintaining the respect and trust and confidence of residents, because I too had feedback from the residents and there were concerns about our belief and our support of the process. So I understand being fiscally responsible and I think that's very important, but I think what happened was in doing that at that step in the process, we went against the process as it had been outlined. And so my concern would be that if we're getting these bids and we're looking at that step in the process, bringing it forward as a concern, a financial concern last week outside of the process or the last meeting, that we projected the perception that we were moving past what the residents had already overwhelmingly supported.
I guess that comes to me. I am actually disappointed that this has become that this has diluted to a conversation about respect. We have all sat here and sat through these meetings, and I think we all respect the process. I really think it's a philosophical difference about what that process is. We get recommendations from Planning Commission who have spent many hours deliberating topics and make recommendations to us, and we take a second look at it. That is what we are doing. That is this conversation. It is council's responsibility to take a look. And I think the budget and emergency services are the two very things that everyone would want us to just make sure that we have a handle on. And that's all we're doing. That's genuinely what we're doing. This was absolutely LTAC. I served on LTAC for many years. I sat through those meetings. So again, that's I guess why I'm struggling with the whole respect thing, because I was LTAC, I sat on that, and have tried to work with the community to come up with an idea that you could all get behind. And I'm really excited that it passed. Seeing it pass was a great thing because we worked so hard to come up with something that would pass. That said, it's not, just to speak a little bit to what Eric said, what I sat and watched was not that emergency services and the school district didn't come and say anything. It was that what they said was neither a wholehearted yes nor a wholehearted no. It was vague. It was cautious. It could. We can't say for sure. We're not going to say no. These kinds of comments are what they said. So that, I feel, puts the weight on council to say, okay, only because, to be honest, and I mean, people who sat on the LTAC committee with me can disagree maybe, but I don't know how. I don't feel like it was given much discussion by the LTAC committee. To be honest, well, the school district, I don't think ever came to an LTAC meeting, but they did come to the council meeting. Anyway, all that to say, that's this point. If it goes to 7, it goes to, if it goes to 700, oh, is there a bug? What was?
No, that was me. I hit it.
Okay.
My apologies.
That face.
I'm trying to unfurl my mapping.
Okay. Yeah, I won't speak any more on that. I just wanted everybody to kind of understand where I'm coming from. That our discussion about this is to me part of that process and part of our responsibility. So with that said, it looks right now, based on a loose straw vote, that it's probably a 2-2 as far as this vote is concerned on council right now. So let's open it up. Oh, sure, Adam.
Just one thing, and this may lend some clarity to things. Maybe I should read what the motion is in front of council for the benefit of those that may not know what the motion actually is.
Thank you, I appreciate that, yeah.
The proposed motion provided by staff to council is for council to move to authorize the township staff to finalize construction drawings for the traffic calming project in Center Hills Village to include the 14-watt style speed hump configuration, as well as 2 alternate bid configurations to include a 10-speed hump and an 8-speed hump configuration as represented by mapping provided by Trans Associates, and as soon as possible, advertise the project for bid with the intention of completing construction of the traffic calming project during the 2023 construction season. So just for clarity, that's what the proposed motion in council's agenda memo reads.
The motion tonight is not deciding on a number of speed humps. It's deciding on what bids we want to get. And 7 and 7 is absolutely included, and I think we all agree that that should be bid. The question is, do we get an alternate bid for fewer? Thanks, Adam, I appreciate that clarity. All right, so let's keep comments to 3 minutes if possible, and then we'll see how it goes. I will first ask people in the room if you'd like to come up and speak. Sure, yeah. You don't have to raise your hand. If you have something to say, just come on up.
My name's Earl Moore. I'm from Oak Ridge Avenue, and I'm also on the LTAC committee. And I was a little bit disappointed in council for the fact that when this whole project started, our neighborhood was very concerned about the speed and the cut-through to begin with before the project down below us goes in. The traffic calming met the criteria for both speed and cut-through. We had over the 85th percentile on speeding, qualified it, plus the cut-through traffic.
Can I, point of clarification on that? It was, Don, are you listening?
Yes.
Did it meet both speed and cut-through for LTAC's review?
Speed was close. Speed was right on the cusp. Yeah, I think we're saying 7 miles an hour. on
Right,
the
and that's
speed.
what it was.
It was like, yeah, it was like 32
miles an hour.
One, you know, I mean,
Okay.
it was right on the cusp, but the cut-through was a blowout.
Was definitely, okay, thank you.
Right, and right now, there's a 600-bed apartment building going down below us. That's going to increase the population of this township by 5%. It's going to put the population on Center Hills, on that hill, at 8% of the population, and you guys are concerned about a few dollars to save lives on our street. That's what bothers me. Okay?
Okay.
You know, we spent a lot of time on this. We actually cut it back from what would have been the maximum. There were originally 4 pinch points in the plan that we took off. You know, it would have been a lot cheaper just to close Squirrel Drive, but you guys didn't want to do that. So I'm just very disappointed. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Anyone else in the room? Please.
Hi, I'm Beth McGraw. I live on Oak Ridge Avenue, and I've also been involved with the community effort. I guess, you know, as someone who's focused on facts and reason, I feel like when we ask an expert for advice and they tell us what will fix the problem, then we should listen. And so I worry about, you know, if a doctor says, take these antibiotic pills for 7 days or take them twice a day, doing our own research and changing that because it's cheaper, easier, or for some other reason. You know, what we end up with is reduced efficacy. And so I'm worried that we have experts who told us how many it would take to even out the speed on our road and to reduce cut-through. So if we start pulling out speed humps because we think it will save money, what you will end up doing is spending still quite a bit of money, but not having something that's effective. And that will waste 3 years of time and effort and trust that has been built with the local community.
Thank you. I appreciate that comment. Another point of clarification, what was Nick Schaefer asked to do when he brought us the 7 speed humps and 4 pinch points?
Basically, maximize the number of devices you could use, and that's based on the criteria of, you want a minimum distance between them and a maximum distance, and then actually it's more the maximum distance. If you don't have enough of the devices, people just simply speed between devices.
Okay, thank you.
And so that 7 and 4 was based on this is the best amount you can get in, where the distance between them is just not enough to speed up.
Okay, thank you. All right, anybody else?
I really appreciate your efforts, and it is always attention.
Can you say your name?
Oh, I'm Robin Jones, and I live on Oak Ridge Avenue, and I live right at the corner of Oak Ridge and Country Club, and so some of these ones that come out, so I live here, and we've had multiple people hit the railing right there because they're going so fast. And so to take out that speed bump is honestly a little bit terrifying to me. Because then you can get real fast going right there, and you can turn that corner really fast. And so the goal of this was safety. And it was brought to council many times, and there could have been an opportunity when the 7 was presented of like, this is what we're going to take to the neighborhood, to say, hold on, we need to figure out costs before we would have that be the thing voted on. It feels like that would have honored the neighborhood in the process. But so having them go, like the canvassing and the conversations and the kind of the community building, it's done in many ways. And the like, we really care about our community, and we care about our neighbors, and we care about their kids, and that it does feel like if cost is the driving factor, like, do we want to elevate cost over safety? And so, yeah, I just really, if the experts have said like, this is the number that would most like actually produce the effective results. I love that point of why would we do something less that's not going to be effective that then we have to go back and like add money later. So yeah, just wanted to bring that up.
Thank you. I see Mr. Ertzgard, please.
Is that a hand or a mouse?
Oh, maybe it's a mouse. Oh, I always do that. I always think it's a hand, but it's a mouse. But I'm sure Mr. Erskard. Yeah, thank you. You got the mouse treatment. The hand was on your box. If you'd like to say something, you can. If not, that's fine.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. I appreciate all the comments that I've heard already. I guess the only thing I would add is that I'm disappointed in the, apparently the engineers' alternate numbers of 5 per street or 4 per street. When he started and he said the 7 speed humps and 4 pinch points was the most effective solution, I would have guessed if he was doing alternates, he would have done 6 and 5 per street, not 5 and 4. That's really it for me, other than just agreeing with a lot of what's already been said. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for your efforts and your work towards this. All right, anybody else? Okay.
I do have a request for a point of clarification.
Please, absolutely.
From the engineer, were there some sort of quantifiable estimates of effectiveness for the 7 humps and the 2
Well,
alternate bids?
no.
So is there any way to make that comparison?
In different situations, it varies so greatly.
Okay,
So it would be just an educated guess.
okay, that's helpful, thank you.
Oh, hey, Carla, can I have a follow-up?
Please
too?
do, yeah.
Thanks. I want to commend Dustin and also say that I wholeheartedly agree with his logic that in the way he expressed it. And I think the difference is the order for me of the events. I would have no reason, no opposition to revisiting alternatives if we went out and the bids just came back outrageously high, and we had already had a discussion about how we could conceivably raise the additional money or where it would come from or where we could go back to the developer. My heartburn is that we've skipped that spot and immediately made some assumptions and asked for alternative bids from the start. You know, we heard from Don, it's 3 weeks, and 3 weeks to install. So if we go out and the bids are way too high and there's no other recourse and we have to go out again for alternatives, it doesn't sound like we lose a lot of time in either design, bid, or
We
implementation.
would lose a month, basically.
Okay.
If we came back and said, no, let's rebid it, then
So-
it'd be the following month we would bid, or, have
So
another bid
I
opening.
don't disagree at all. In fact, I support what Dustin said. It's just the order that we're going.
Okay.
For example, should we go out with the 7, it comes in at bid, we move forward. We went through all of this and sent this message to the folks and had this angst and discussion basically for nothing.
Okay. So I can feel a potential, what about then a motion that's made for the 7 with a soft financial cap? Can we talk about right now where's your limit? I'm not sure without
I
looking
see
at.
where you're coming from, and I appreciate that,
Okay.
because I like us trying to work to consensus, and I would hope we'd get there. I think the hang-up there for me is,
Please.
I don't feel comfortable putting a number on it until, let's say they come back really high, until we have the opportunity to talk with staff about the potential for getting that revenue, where that revenue would come from. Because just like we talked to Earl about, just throwing a number out there for their capital, Parks capital, I'm uncomfortable throwing a number out there if I don't know what the options are. If it comes in $100,000 over budget and we go to the developer and we can get that, then fine. You know, or if our budget is tracking in such a manner that we've saved money or recouped money from here, and then we can, with minimal heartburn, expend. So I like that approach, but I'm uncomfortable putting a hard number in a motion.
I said soft.
Or even a number.
Okay.
Maybe the concept that should we be unable or unwilling to, you know, find the additional dollars, that we then revisit it in that, but only in that context, after having explored all other options to meet our commitment. And I don't know if we can craft a motion like that tonight, but I'm certainly open to it.
Okay. Where are you feeling, Dustin?
I'm open to it.
Okay. Okay.
Can we just move ahead with the 7 with the understanding that when it comes back, we have...
Well,
that
am I hearing you make a motion, Eric?
Yeah, well, if we've exhausted the, you know, the opportunity to take care of this and...
Well, you can still make a motion, we can discuss further
Yeah.
on that.
Do you want to try to craft one on the spot there?
Well, my motion would just eliminate the middle part of that motion, and we would just as a group have an understanding that when they come back, we'll immediately sit down, look at the budget, look at addition, if it comes in crazy high, we'll explore opportunities to find that additional revenue somewhere else, and at the same time, then go back and look at the alternates.
Well, could we qualify that with just to say,
I'm sorry, one moment. Oh, thanks, Jen. So I just noticed somebody was waiting to be admitted.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. Okay, go ahead.
I'm just saying, could we just qualify that with to say that if it does come within the budgeted amount, that it would be approved? You know, we could add that to the motion. If the 14 watt speed humps comes back within the budgeted amount, then staff is authorized to move forward with the process.
Yeah.
If it is outside the budgeted amount, it has to come back to staff.
What is the budgeted amount?
$80,000.
Thank you.
Well,
I mean, that's what is in the that's what's in the 2023 budget.
That is what we approved in the
$80,000
budget.
total. And that does not account for the, as Dawn had indicated, the engineering that has already gone into it.
I think
So
Eric's
there's
going to
nothing-
bring up the contribution by the developer, but I would like to say that that contribution is pretty much expended, or almost?
I'm gonna say maybe 15,000 left.
Okay.
so it's 80,000 outside of the developer's contribution that's in the budget?
Yes,
That would be true.
And we've expended 30-some in engineering?
yeah.
So we have about 20 of the developers plus our 80,
15.
Probably like 95 total.
and we're projecting $5,000.
Roughly, using the 5,000 per hump and the 5,000 for engineering, we're at 75.
So we have a buffer of about 20,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's enough of a buffer for me.
I'm just waiting for a motion. Do you have any comments on this, Susan?
No, I agree with Eric. I think that makes sense.
I know, but we're about to make a motion and I don't want to.
Well, I'll give it a whirl.
Thanks.
Okay, on the spot, let's see what he's got.
Were you putting something together?
No, I think you'll probably do better than me.
Well, oh,
Oh, we're so polite.
okay. Hey, this is what we do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we can have 3-2 votes, we can have 4-1 votes, but we always strive for consensus. I think that's worth noting. It's noble. To the 15. Okay. Let me try this on the fly. Move to authorize township staff to finalize construction drawings for the traffic calming project in Center Hills Village to include the 14 watt style speed hump configuration as soon as possible, advertise the project for bid with the intention of completing the construction of the traffic, let me back up, advertise the project for bid and authorize staff and advertise the project for bid and construction if the bids come in at or under the budget amount, with the intention of completing construction of the traffic calming project during the 2023 construction. Let me try that again.
No, I
From
think we
beginning to
got
end.
it. Did you capture that, Jen? Okay. All right, so what,
Did you get that, Jen?
yeah, I got that. I know. Oh, yeah, that's right.
I'm gonna second that.
Okay, thank you. Adam, you have something you want to
Just,
say?
I just as a qualification, not to the motion, but just so everyone is aware, these will be bids, that it exceeds the bid threshold, so council will need to actually take action to award the bid.
Right.
Okay, so we-
I just wanted to be sure that was understood.
So we technically need to amend that.
So we're gonna
Well, I
have to
don't-
revisit before the last second.
I don't know that we have to amend the motion necessarily.
No.
I don't believe that you
It'll be
do.
formulaic if it comes in
That's
at
correct.
or under, otherwise it's a discussion, right? Based on the motion that was
It'll
made.
be a formality to award the bid if it comes.
Right, which we do regularly with
That's
paving
correct.
and things
Could
like
be
that.
consent
It would be a
agenda.
consent agenda. type.
Exactly, so I'm comfortable with
I
that.
just wanted to be sure that.
Unless it
Yeah.
exceeds the threshold, and then it's a further
And then it's
conversation.
on the agenda. Okay.
Got it.
Okay, great. I will accept questions or comments first from the public in the room if there are any. Make it quick, please. We got a long agenda.
I know, I'm sorry, real quick. And I'd just like to say, I'm not disappointed that you guys are concerned about funds. I'm just wanted to reiterate that this is a very personal issue for all of us that live up there. And, you know, the safety of all our neighbors is important. And that's, you know, I don't have any hard feelings towards any of you because I want you to spend my money wisely. But, but you know, and so that's all I have to say.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Mr. Dara, just just make it quick if you can.
Taxpayer of.
Can you say your name and where you live?
Why wouldn't you get?
Can you, Mr. Dara, can you say,
Now, excuse me?
can you say your name and where you live?
Yeah, I'm Ed Dara. I live at 250 Bottle Drive. I'm also part of the planning commission, but I'm calling in as a resident. I heard everybody talk about this, and what's the difference of getting a bid for the 7, 5, or 4 when you're going out to bid, and if it comes in at budget for 7, you didn't do any harm getting a bid for 5 or 4, and then you don't have a delay of 30 days.
Yeah, thank you,
I
Mr.
don't see what the big deal is.
I yeah, so
Fiscally,
may I respond to you? Yeah, so that was actually discussed, that was pretty much the entirety of our discussion tonight, is why we would do that and why we would make this motion. So instead of going over it again, I'll just encourage you to read the minutes or watch the tape.
No, I heard everything.
Okay.
So basically, I don't understand why you're afraid to go out and get 3 bids all one time.
All right, thank you. Any further comment or question? Without any, I will call the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. And nay? Okay, motion carries. Thank you, and thank you to everybody who participated.
Just for the record, we're not asking Keller now to prepare additional, we're just asking for the bid package for 7.
Yes.
All right, OB2, solar power purchase agreement. Mr. Bloom.
Sure. So this has obviously been a topic of some discussion, both here at College Township as well as throughout the region. So I won't belabor the point. Where we're at tonight is a kind of a continuation of a discussion that we had at our last meeting. At that time, there was a request from the organizers, the project management team, to have College Township and each of the member entities to the solar power purchasing agreement provide a more finite estimate of potential usage from the solar aspect. of the solar power purchasing agreement. As we talked about it at last month's meeting, what we were trying to do was zero in and give you the the complete package of elements so you could have the most informed discussion about that projection. Where we're at currently is the project management team continues to work towards a final proposal from our two kind of finalists that we have, one from the solar generation area and one from the retail side. In order to do that, they need to give a more finite number for the total usage under this agreement. That is kind of the key to opening up a fixed price point and giving you that final piece of information. What we're able to present tonight, and I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge Joe Vigilone is on our Zoom here tonight, so he's here to help answer questions. Joe's been involved since the inception of this discussion and has been involved with the project management team, so he is well versed in this process. He had prepared a small presentation, which you've already seen at General Forum, so again, I won't belabor that. But Jen, if you could, just briefly, we're going to take an excerpt from Joe's presentation. It's 3 slides that tries to fill that little bit of a gap that we had where we were during our discussion of last month. Yeah, it's slide 9 is the first slide. And Joe, certainly along the way here, feel free to unmute and chime in, and I'm sure we may have some questions for you. But what's presented on these 3 slides is the best estimate based on the information that the project management team has now of what College Township's electricity cost would look like if you continue under the current rate versus under the solar power purchasing agreement. And you know, to kind of boil this down, actually, Jen, can you go to the next slide? I think shows it maybe even a little clearer. Bottom line is under this projection that they have prepared, and this is at 100% solar, the annual savings, since we're kind of one of the small players in this, for College Township is somewhere in that $2,500 to $3,000 range of our annual bill, based on what's estimated at about, Joe, again, correct me if I'm wrong, about 5 cents per kilowatt hour versus our current rate of 8.75. So we wanted to be able to give you some factor to think about when you're considering really the two questions at heart here in the memo tonight. First, as to whether or not College Township's intention is to continue on and stay in the solar power purchasing agreement, and then if so, at what percentage are you thinking that you would like to stay in? The memo talks about kind of the factors that we encourage you to consider, those being the aspiration of council, the price factor that we're alluding to here, the element of risk, what growth are we projecting in terms of our electrical usage, or decrease for that matter, depending on what we do moving forward, and then ultimately what your goal is as a council. Those are factors ultimately that you should consider as you're contemplating this discussion. Where staff landed in terms of a recommendation for tonight is, one, that we continue on as a township and continue to be a partner in the solar power purchasing agreement. And 2, just for purposes of discussion, what the township staff is offering is 80% of your annual usage of electricity be through the solar power purchasing agreement. And I have to zero in on one point. When we talk about percentages for this, it's a percentage based off of a fixed number in time. So in 2018, as this effort started, we provided our annual usage. At that time, it was, let me see the number here real quick, 382, let's say 383,000.
That's what it says up there, yeah.
Oh, sorry, kilowatt hours.
That says megawatt hours, but that's.
Yeah, ours is kilowatt. Ours is
like
kilowatt.
a lot.
Yeah, it's. I'm guessing we used the template and we just failed to change that. We're at kilowatt hours.
Okay.
383,000. So that would be right. 383 megawatt hours.
Oh, right, yeah.
So what where we're at currently hasn't changed dramatically. We have grown. We're still under 400,000 kilowatt hours. So we're kind of running in that same range over the last couple years. So I just wanted to zero in on that. What you're presenting is either a fixed number or a fixed percentage of your 2018 number, which works out to be about 300,000 kilowatt hours based off of that 2018 number. I'm probably not doing the best job with describing this, so Joe, if you want to jump in and add any of your additional commentary, please feel free.
Hi, Joe.
Hi, Joe Vigilone, Center Region Council Government's Finance Director. Mike actually did a great job, just to give himself enough credit. The one thing I would say is when you're looking at that savings for year 2025, that's based upon the projected market, which is at about 7.5 cents a kilowatt hour, which was underneath your current market rate.
Yeah, sorry, Joe, I guess I gave you the wrong number. Right now, you're estimating, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, Joe, the number's kind of around that 5 cent is what you're seeing, at least initially from the proposal?
For your slide up there right now, the total bill amount, you can see down there at the bottom in the gold. So the 5 cents is a generation, and then you've got settlement charges and a few other things, consulting fees, which bring it up to about 6.8 cents a kilowatt hour.
Great, thanks, Joe. I appreciate that clarity. So I know that council has seen this in a number of individual presentations, and we'll certainly do as deep of a dive as you want to do tonight, but from this perspective, it really boils down to those two key questions. One, does council wish to continue to stay in? And two, if so, what are you looking at in terms of a number? And just for historical purposes, when we had this first discussion about where council was philosophically with a range, you said 60 to 80. Staff just kind of midpointed it. And one of the reasons that we did that was thinking ahead to thinking back to the discussion.
You said 60 to 80 or 60 to 100?
I'm sorry, 60 to 100.
And then you midpointed it to 80.
Midpointed it at 80. One of the other reasons that kind of went into the rationale of picking 80 is the potential for over that 15-year fixed term of solar. Are there going to be energy efficiency projects that we undertake here at the township that maybe actually drives our energy usage down? Now, that could also be on the other side of the equation as we, look at changes in fleet vehicles and changes in facility size. We may ultimately see that number grow. Staff's just kind of taking an educated guess and throwing that number out there.
Mm-hmm. All right, thank you. Also, as part of the discussion, a lot of, if I may ask a question off the bat, a lot of discussion that I'm hearing is about fleet vehicles and electric vehicles. I did a little bit of research about how many kilowatt hours per year a simple electric vehicle going, 30 miles a day would be, but we kind of have that number already. So do we have that available at all of it wasn't much.
Yeah.
It was, I think what I read was 3 kilowatt hours.
It hasn't had a exponential bump in our budget. Obviously the Bolt isn't a big user.
Right.
The thought process is that over time, if we see more of the public works type equipment moving into even a partial electric generation, then those may have a little bit more of a substantial bump to our usage. But even if with that, I don't see us becoming a massive user of electricity comparative to others in this.
Right, we don't have a police force, our fleet isn't terribly substantial.
Correct.
Okay. I just wanted to kind of tighten up that portion of the conversation. Any other questions for staff? Dustin?
No, I am good.
You're gonna questions?
Two.
Great.
Comment question. I was so happy until you said you midpointed it, because I'm thinking, 80, you didn't pick 75, which we had all tossed out there. They put some thought into this, it's actually 80, and then I hear you say midpointed between 60 and 100.
Well, Joe tried to give me credit, and I'm taking it away.
Hey,
stomping on it.
Serious question though, thanks. Just so I understand, I know we're not there yet to the commitment level, so I think we should stay. I think everybody thinks that, I hope. The 80% we're actually then committing to a certain 80% of 2018's kilowatt hours, not 80% of what our usage might be.
Correct.
So-
So if you, you know, and that's a great point, Eric, is if you're thinking from your seats that our electrical use is going to grow, and you're comfortable with, in 2018, that number, and at the end of this, we're using 500 kilowatt hours, then it's a much smaller slice of that pie, so.
It becomes 65% of our total use
Right.
instead of 80, so, but we'll have an opportunity to refine that at the next step, because we're now just getting a ballpark kilowatt hours to put the package together.
Yeah, Joe, I just want to confirm, you know, that
The timeline?
question is, as we zero in and get to the point where we have to make a hard and fast decision, can we adjust the percentage, or are we fixed at some point earlier than that point?
Yes, I think that we're not exactly 100% now. We're trying to aim to get closer to the 100%.
Wait,
And if
don't
you
don't
go to
use
slide
percentages.
16,
It's confusing. Use
I
other
think
words. We're not,
Total kilowatt, you're getting a package of kilowatt hours to move forward.
Yeah, Jen,
Right.
if you could
Based
pull
on-
the-
I just don't want the
if you could pull
conversation
the
to get
presentation back
convoluted.
up.
Okay.
You said
that's all.
slide 16, Joe?
Joe, can you just say that again?
Okay, let me get to the slide that he's talking about.
Yeah, I was looking for slide 16 to come up.
Okay,
Thanks. Oh, there is a percentage right there, 100% solar.
I'm sorry.
Oh, that's if it's 100% solar, right?
Right. So we're getting closer within here. So especially with College Township, you know, to try to nail down on slide 16, which just disappeared from my screen.
Keep going, Jen, just
Keep
move
going?
forward a few slides. Yeah, keep going, keep going.
Keep-
One more, I think. There it is.
There you go. If you look at the size of the various organizations
Under the
in here, you can see, you know, State College School District is 43%. College Township is third from the bottom in terms of size on there. So if you guys move from 70 to 80%, it's going to be a fairly small number in the overall size of this array. I would say the bigger issue would be if you would go from 80% to 0, or then if you went from 80% back to 60 or 80% up to 100.
Thank you.
That's what I was saying at the last meeting, our number, we're pretty far down the chain of importance of being accurate at this point.
And just to reiterate a point Adam raised earlier, the Water Authority had this discussion last night. They settled at 50, readily acknowledging that they've been a little more on the fence than maybe we have, you know, our council has at this point. But they set in at 50 right now, which is a good, you know, good benchmark for them.
It's very encouraging,
They stayed in.
given the preliminary indications, so.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. All right, so we have a number thrown out on the table. Discussion, Susan.
No comments other than I think we should stay in the agreement and continue forward. And it sounds like we'd still have the opening to change the percentage going forward. So that makes sense.
And Dustin?
Does this require a motion? And a
It
vote?
says action, so I think it does.
It would be a motion, but it would only be.
Oh, it's not
only-
official, though.
it's
We're
not
still
official, but
narrowing.
It would only be so, in order for staff to be able to convey what council's intention is.
Okay, so,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely want to stay in, and I'm very comfortable with the 80% because I don't want to play too much crystal ball in the next 15 years. There's many, I agree with that. There could be many energy options coming to light in 15 years. Yeah, and so, okay, that's my discussion. I could make a motion, but I'll wait.
Eric?
I can make a motion. I think we should stay in. I'm comfortable with 80. I just needed some clarification. I move to council maintain its involvement in the SPPA and that we indicate an initial annual volume of the township annual electricity to be used through solar generation at 80% of 2018 or approximately 300,000 kilowatt hours.
A second.
Any further discussion? Sorry, I was thrown off by the number. Okay, any further discussion? Anybody online? Do you see, Jen? That's okay. Don't be. All right, great. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right.
Thank you. I just wanted to give my thanks to Joe. Appreciate you hanging in there and your added insight to this conversation. Thanks, Joe.
Definitely. Thank you, Joe. All right.
Thanks, everybody.
Good night. Brings us to old business 3, CTIDA Executive Director Agreement with College Township. Take it away, Adam.
Yes, as we have done on a couple of different occasions, council has extended the interim executive director, the manager acting as the interim executive director for the College Township Industrial Development Authority. They have made the request of council to consider another extension from March 31st of this year to June 30th of this year. And you have a recommended motion as part of the agenda memo. The only additional thing that I would say to council is that I believe that I can see the light at the end of the tunnel in terms of winding down the need for my involvement, especially now that the governance committee is directly engaged in the development of a job description for a new executive director or their own executive director. And so I think that this additional time will provide some opportunity to bring that to a conclusion or much closer to a reality for them. And of course, you have College Township Industrial Development Authority liaison from council that is here, who I believe has been in attendance at the last several meetings and perhaps may wish to speak to what he's been seeing as far as the direction of the authority.
Yeah, if you have some comments you'd like to share, Dustin, that'd be great.
I mean, I think the only thing I would like us to see, and I think we can work through this, I can work with the interim executive director, and just really be able to present that progress as a report, perhaps, as part of my report even, or your report, to council as we move ahead.
Great. Rich sent in a comment that I will note in here. It's just that the chair in the agreement needs to be updated.
I did do that already.
You did do that? Okay, great.
He also asks,
And I was going to get to that. And the status of candidates for appointment to current IDA vacancies.
Yes, I know that the chair of the IDA has 3 names that council has provided as potential board members for the IDA, and actually this week I believe he was holding a number of those meetings with those candidates. My hope is that by our next meeting at the 15th, on the 15th of March, that we'll be able, council will have those names and you'll be able to make at least several appointments.
Great.
There's 3 positions.
So you're thinking mid-March?
Yeah, I think that our
Wow.
second meeting in March.
That's
we'll be
soon.
able to do
Okay. Okay. Gotta make that note. All right, so I will accept a motion if somebody's got one.
I'll make a motion.
Great.
Move to approve the memorandum of understanding agreement between College Township Council and the College Township Industrial Development Authority authorizing the township manager to function as the CTIDA Executive Director from March 31st, 2023 through June 30th, 2023, subject to the terms and conditions of the agreement.
Second? Anybody?
second.
All right. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. And opposed? All right, moving on. NB1. This was a later addition, so it's in our supplemental folders. What?
It's on the table, it
There's-
was in the
Oh,
supplemental.
there it is,
as
yes.
well, I believe.
It's everywhere.
So
Thank you,
it's
Jen.
everywhere.
COG draft 2024 budget priorities. Yeah, Adam, why don't you introduce it? Thanks.
Sure. As you know, coming out of the 2022 COG budgetary process, which was less than an ideal situation, and given the difficulties around coming to some agreement on that budget process. The budget itself, the process for the development of the COG budget has been reviewed. And I believe that there have been several committees at COG that have kind of taken an opportunity to input on this particular topic. The end result has been a draft of 2023 budget priorities, which is on, if you're looking at the page, it's on the table, it's on the back page. And this has been referred by COG to the municipalities for the municipal comment now as a group, as a whole. So that is really all the more introduction that I had here.
I have some things to add. And I'm actually gonna, Joe, I'm gonna put you on the spot, Joe Vigileone with COG Finance Director, because I think he said it really well at our executive committee for COG, just the Finance Committee's reasoning for needing and wanting these priorities. And when we're looking at them, let us remember that these are not COG's priorities. These are strictly through the lens of what do we spend our dollars on. Joe, can you speak to that?
Well, I think I made a mistake by responding to emails before logging off, but we thought on it.
Oh, sorry, we're talking about
Just
the priorities, yeah.
Just within this, there were really three things in which I think there were issues with the COG budget last year. One was on the timeline and not necessarily following the new timeline as was set. The second was a decision back in 2018 not to establish a guideline or continue the involvement of a guideline, which didn't necessarily direct COG staff or the expectations of what the budget should be increasing by. And I think that put us there. And the third one was with the priorities, the finance priorities. And the finance committee said pretty much that they want to know what the priorities are going in, so they're making decisions based upon those priorities at the detailed budget review process, rather than the priorities being determined by the finance committee at the detailed budget review process. And that's really the direction that we're taking with this. We've kept the discussions on the timeline and the guideline in the development of how that's done within the finance committee. But in terms of the priorities, we felt it better as an organization to kick it out of finance based upon their comments last year with the budget process and up into more of the executive committee and to general forum type of level.
Thank you. You can log off if you need to. Run away. And then they would also specifically like them ranked. Executive committee was not prepared to go to that point without agreeing on having everybody agree on the priorities themselves. And then we'll send it back to the municipalities for rank. Well, we're not sure how we're going to do that. The discussion was getting long and we decided let's get them out for review. So I don't actually know how we're going to do that yet. But it'll either be going back to municipalities or it'll be going out through a survey or something like that for just individual response.
Would the ranking be like a weighting system?
It would be, so that you have this budget request and this budget request, but this budget request speaks to priority number 1 and this budget request speaks to priority number 7, so the finance committee can kind of make decisions. It's a formulaic way to make decisions in COG, and I think it's worth a shot with as far as it comes to the budget and bringing 37 people around a table to some decisions about how that money is spent. So let's take a look at the priorities themselves. I'm just going to read them aloud. Addressing economic impacts, parentheses, inflation, deflation. Taking care of what we own, safe, well-maintained facilities. The next one is taking care of COG staff. So, for example, equitable pay, COLA, inflation, merit, benefits. Next one, commitment to an inclusive, healthy, and sustainable community. The next one, preparing for the future of the COG and COG facilities. The next one, regional economic benefit to support the vitality of the region. The next one is efficient, interconnected, shared services delivery ecosystem. What does that mean?
I underlined that one 'cause it's a mouthful.
Anybody know what that one means?
Did Rich write that?
In his shorthand? Okay, so we don't know what that one means, question mark. And then the next one is safety of those who live, work, and visit the region. So for example, code, fire, EMS, transportation.
I could take a shot at what I think he means.
Please, Eric.
Because at first, I thought it was a transportation issue at first glance, but I'm guessing it has to do, it's really talking about regional services.
Code, yeah. Things,
When you talk
library.
about shared delivery ecosystem, and what's the most efficient, economically, environmentally way to share services? And that is just a guess.
Yeah, it's kind of like a euphemism for COG, right?
Theoretically, that should be understood.
Yeah.
It shouldn't necessarily have to be a goal, shouldn't have to state it as a goal.
Right. Okay. So,
But that's my guess, it may mean something else.
we're gonna think about it in that lens for the sake of this meeting. Should we be wrong? I'm sure we will be told. So I just want to also throw out, since Rich is on the finance committee and had a hand in creating these, his notes for this evening. In general, I support the draft priorities as I feel they support the COG mission and vision. Having had the opportunity to be a part of the drafting of them, I feel my peers' input is critical at this point to guide my actions at COG Finance. I would ask that we review these on at least 3 levels. Do we support the listed priority? Hopefully that is because it also supports College Township's mission and vision. Can it be said better, simpler? I think maybe we have a little star on that one. And list them in the order of priority for College Township. Again, we're not quite listing them yet. We're gonna just stick to number 1 and number 2. So, all right, addressing economic impacts. Do we support this? Addressing inflation, deflation. It's hard to have this conversation without Rich. Yeah.
I do have a question.
Please.
When I hear the term budget priorities, I'm thinking something that's much different than what's on this page. But having listened to this conversation to this point, what I'm gathering is this is an overarching set of guiding principles for how the Finance Committee is going to be viewing the COG budget and what is important to be funded in the COG budget?
Mm-hmm.
Is that accurate?
I think it's like a rating rubric. Does that fit with what you're saying?
Well, it can.
It's a no.
Well, I mean, no.
You know Adam well enough to know that's a no.
No, again, in my world, as a manager, okay?
The real world.
In feet on the ground world of budgetary, if you presented this to me as a manager and said, here, develop a budget around this, I'd have a lot of questions, okay? Now, that said, if in fact this is an overarching set of principles, and I'm thinking of our of College Township's goals and values, if this is a goal and value statement that's been developed for the COG, on behalf of COG, by the Finance Committee, that will serve a distinct purpose in assisting the Finance Committee to accomplish the work that it needs to do in the upcoming budget, then I don't need to ask a lot of questions.
Let's go that route.
Yeah, that sounds good.
So could our first comment be about the title?
Great.
And could it possibly be, what is the 2-year, the work plan? What is the?
We have the, you have the program plan.
The program plan. So is it more, based on what Adam said, these are more guidelines for the program plan from which then the budget supports? Because these do align more with what you're talking about, the values and the priorities that would be used to develop the program plan, which then the budget has to support.
True, but I'm thinking about the program plan adoption process and.
No?
No, I'm sorry, I was
No.
answering Adam's question. Yeah,
So we don't have to agonize over the title, but I think budget is throwing people for the same reason it's throwing Adam. And maybe it's the draft program priorities instead.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about the way that the program plan is approved at COG. I mean, this must have to do with the end game where these requests all land at facilities and they're stuck saying which ones make it and which ones don't, which isn't the program plan, it's
No,
still the
that-
budget.
that clearly is the budget. And when it comes to finance is in a tough spot.
Yeah.
And I understand why finance needs a tool to utilize to better make final decisions, or help guide them in making these final decisions. It just threw me, because if I was gonna give you a priority, my first priority would be, you gotta fund the fire service. I mean,
You want to put actual things, right?
again, that, if you asked me as a township manager to give you a budget priority, and I was the king of COG, what I would come back to you with as a recommendation
Would be
is,
safety of those who live, work, and visit the region, code
which would
fire,
be,
EMS,
no
transport.
matter what you do, that your first priority has gotta be, you gotta fund public safety.
Right, so that's in here.
And that's in here, and that's fine.
Okay, so Adam likes it.
But you see what
I know,
I'm saying?
you're trying to
It's
talk at a
very
different level.
specific-
Yeah, you would
I know.
be more specific with the priorities. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But again, it's not drafted that way, but this can still, now that I understand it a little bit.
Yeah.
This can still be, I think, very useful, provided all the general forum members understand what these mean and are then able to
Right.
meaningfully rank them
Right.
as to their importance within their own municipality.
These are a bigger category. You would rank them more nitty gritty. Down,
Tasks versus goals, some of these are
yeah,
objectives.
yeah, or
I mean,
yeah.
these could be multi-year, these could be more than just 1 year. And with Adam, I think, he's saying details, maybe 2023, it's funding fire services #1, but that might be #2 in 2024, right?
Right, and I think the point of these is to, so think about what we spend money on at COG, and everything should fall into something of this. So that's our question tonight, is there, I mean, I would say one of the recommendations I'm gonna have is have a short sentence after each one, because golly, they're a little vague. The examples are nice, but everything should have an example.
So I do have a question, since I'm brand new to this process. This represents a departure from an established process. Or
An
some sort of
established
remediation of a
habit.
problem? A habit, whatever it is. But there's been identified some problem with the current process, and there needs to be more definition, but this is very vaguely defined. So is there an underlying problem? I guess that's how my brain says, why are we doing this? Is there something that has gone wrong in the past? And this is a response to that, so where are we going with that?
Yes.
What I would suggest is that over time, actual final decisions have been vested in the COG Finance
Right.
Committee. And without any kind of overarching guiding principles or objectives or real direction about how they should be making these decisions. And that has happened over time. This is an attempt to begin to put some structure to finance's critical problem and their critical decisions of what gets funded and what does not get funded. And so it is a recognition that we've ridden the horse as long as we can, the way we have done it in the past. That the decisions that now come to the Finance Committee are so weighty.
Right.
That they need to have more to work with
More
in
direction.
terms of more direction to
Understood.
inform what they're doing.
Right.
So, based on some of those words you used, Adam, thank you very much. And Eric's suggestion about the title, throwing something out there, draft 2023 budget guiding priorities.
Principles.
Principles.
Or, I don't know if we should change the word priorities, but budget guiding critical priorities. Or critical budget guiding priorities. The reason I don't know about changing it to principles, I know that that word flows nicely after the word guiding, but I think they want more of a, like a stick with the priority order, and principles kind of takes that away from that.
Well, we could still waive it though, on an annual basis.
I know. I'm just thinking throwing the word guiding in there might help shape what you're talking about, or not, just throwing it out
So,
there.
2023
just
priority
say
guidelines?
Guidelines.
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 These are guidelines now. I mean, they're very vague guidelines. I mean, I wouldn't prescribe something based on vague guidelines, but I think it's a start. Seems like a lot of it seems to
Okay, something along that. So that'll be a note. Here are some ideas. Okay. So let's get into it. Basically, do we support the listed priority?
It's vague enough that it covers everything.
What is your idea? Oh, no.
Sorry.
Oh, have it if you want.
If I just very briefly go back to help Susan with her question, I think contextually, in the past, we had the program plan, which was way too detailed. But that's what we had instead of this. So we as a COG were asked to comment and eventually adopt this very thick document. Talked about all the things that COG was going to do the next year. Theoretically, these priorities were integrated into that, but we really couldn't see them individually. So when it came time to make cuts out of it, it wasn't clear that what things in there to reconcile against. I think this makes it a leaner and cleaner exercise when it comes to competing priorities. So we went from a document that was like this, that we reviewed in lieu of this ahead of time, to this, and I kind of like this approach better.
I think
you're still gonna get the program.
You are, but it's gonna come from this instead of vice versa.
Okay. So addressing, I appreciate that, yeah, I think that, and you'll see that as the year plays out. It's hard to.
I'm getting it.
Yeah. So addressing economic impacts, inflation, deflation, that must be something that the COG finance has to deal with. As far as prices that go up, prices that go down, we all agree that that's a thing that finance has to deal with. Nods across the table. Okay. Taking care of what we own, safe, well-maintained facilities. That's a big one. I
Came out of facilities.
feel like that's a priority. College Township can get behind that. Points back to our mission statement and values. Taking care of COG staff, equitable pay, COLA, inflation, merit benefits. Nods around the table. Awesome.
That's an eight.
Absolutely.
Commitment to an inclusive, healthy, and sustainable community. That definitely goes back to our mission and values. Nods around the table.
That one's a little vague, but yes.
Okay, yeah, vague.
I mean, compared to taking care of COG staff, that seems more directive, that we make that a priority. That seems like an overarching principle to all these priorities.
That's true, right? And yeah, now that you say it, I think about that.
And
like,
it's
does that mean like we're taking care of
subjective.
parks? I mean, does it mean we're?
Can you just throw anything under there?
Yeah, right.
Narrow.
I think that actually sort of underlies all the other priorities, because we have a commitment to an inclusive, healthy, sustainable, and by being committed to that, we support the staff. we
Right,
support the
well, it's
facilities.
interesting, because if you think about it, like kingdom, phylum, like, those things,
That's it.
like, that one's too big.
That one's a
right?
kingdom.
Yeah,
That's
we
what
want
that-
it, we want down a level.
We want the genus.
Yeah, but not the species.
Yeah, because
Not
the
yet the
bottom bullet
species.
falls in. Right, it falls with, I mean, that, yeah, you know, that's like, yeah, that's a high.
Yeah,
high
two-
level
two-
category.
That's higher order.
Higher order.
It's too higher order.
To higher order. Okay, not that that can't, something like that can't be in there, but it's gotta come down a level. Preparing for the future of the COG and COG facilities.
I don't understand this one. My note on this was, how is that any different than the taking care of what we own?
Yep, that was my comment, that there's a lot of overlap between the second and fifth bullet.
Because if we're taking care of what we own, I mean, we're talking about budgets, this is the future anyhow, right?
Well, maybe that could be brought into taking care of what we owned, and then that could include preparing for the future.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's along the lines of taking care of what we own as our current inventory, but preparing for the future is something like the cap. Thinking about what will come in 5 and 10 years, and then incorporating that in how we think about budgeting priorities.
That's interesting.
But it can be part of the same exercise that
Right.
you go through when you do your 10-year plan and your 15-year look. You know, you've got asset maintenance in there along with projections. Rich, the only reason I brought it up is he asked for, can it be said better or simpler? And the first thing I thought about was those two could be one.
Unless they can argue for why it's separate,
Yeah,
and
unless
then.
we get different,
And
unless
then
we
we'll
get an
get that,
explanation.
yeah, okay. Regional economic benefit to support the vitality of the region. Is this like,
A lot of overlap with the first one.
True.
I mean, I know there are two different efforts going in two slightly different directions, but it's
I
under the
couldn't tell if
same-
that was the, oh gosh, why am I blanking on it? Not the Better Business Bureau, the,
CBICC.
CBICC, yes. I wasn't sure if that's what it was referring to. I don't, maybe a little vague too. Okay, efficient, interconnected, shared services delivery ecosystem.
Yeah, that's just a
That's like-
mouthful. I mean, it's pretty.
I shouldn't laugh. It's, yeah.
I said it in a funny way.
I apologize, I shouldn't laugh. If I may, I just,
I feel like it should be painted on the side of a van that pulls up.
So creating efficiencies in our shared service deliveries?
Yeah, I don't have a specific comment on that one, because I honestly don't really have my arms wrapped around what it is. I liken this back to, and Eric will laugh because he probably knows where I'm going. I liken this back to many years ago, the MPO struggled with the same kind of issue. How do you take hundreds of individual projects, or in this case, services that are being provided through the COG and efforts, work tasks, whatever you want to classify them as, and prioritize those to make budgetary decisions. And where the MPO started at that time was, okay, you were provided federal planning factors. And that's kind of what you have here.
Well, federal planning
Very high level, broad reaching statements that don't necessarily have a whole lot of definition to them. And to get to where finance is trying to get to, you're going to have to define these, and you're going to have to assign some value to each of them. And then you're going to have to weight them. Because at the end of the day, each one of these tasks you're going to have to assign a value to. They're going to have to go through that weighted criteria to come out and say, okay, service 1 versus service 15, where do they rank out? And, kind of where do we draw the line in our budget? This is, I think, a good exercise that gets you started. It kind of defines those overarching guiding principles. But in order to get where I think finance is trying to get to be able to make individual budgetary decisions, they're going to have some defining objectives under each of these that have some assigned value attached to them. And then frankly, the really hard part of that, that's a hard enough task. But the really hard task is then to take each one of these as defined with those principles and undertake some type of paired comparison analysis amongst general forum to establish a priority. We did that in the MPO honestly, on a paper format. It was painful. It was some of the most interesting discussions that I was ever involved with at that level, because end of the day, everybody came back and said the same thing. This is very hard. Yeah. Imagine
And
if
finance is like, we know.
Imagine if you're sitting in finance shoes and you have this much in the purse and this much of a service demand. I'm sorry, long answer to just a long comment to just kind of where I'm at on it is, these are good, this is a good guiding principle level, but in order to get where I think finance is going, you're going to have to better define them.
Yeah, okay, let's make sure to get that comment captured too. All right,
Mike, write that.
I'll write it down. Put it in the memo.
Just kidding.
Safety of those who live, work, and visit the region, code, fire, EMS, et cetera.
And I think that's an example of what you're talking about. There's sort of this general overarching principle, but that would include everything that we would budget for. So
Sure.
something that looks exactly like that one, that last one.
I mean, to Adam's earlier point, if the priority or the question in front of the finance committee at the time is fund fire versus parks, or planning, even better. You know, fund one of those two, which one at the end of the day is the critical service? And does it get awarded points under multiple categories? Yeah, planning would too. You know, it's just a question of how do you break those down? It's not an easy exercise. It takes years to dial it in.
Well, they want us to have this done by March 10th.
So
It's a goal.
But as a start, the first step is to define those principles.
Yeah.
And
Would
then
it,
refine them.
would there be any way that we could give more than these comments? Would we be able to give any concrete suggestions? Or is that something we don't feel like we have a handle on? Do you know what I mean by concrete suggestions, like actual wording? That's a no.
Well, I mean, no. Well, from my perspective, no, because I still need to understand what the intent is.
Exactly.
And that makes it really problematic. I mean, clearly, like I said before, if I was handed this page and said, here, you need to develop a budget around these, I don't know that I could do it, simply because I don't know.
I mean,
but that's a level at which I don't think that this is trying to play.
right, exactly.
And I do understand that now. But as far, I wouldn't want to denigrate the work that a variety of committees had
Right.
going into this. I mean, they have tried to address, I mean, facilities did it. I'm sure Parks was involved, right? With this.
I think it was just
I don't
facilities
So
and
it wasn't
finance.
just facilities and finance?
I think
Okay.
it was.
All right. Okay. But there isn't anything, what I was saying to Eric here off to the side a moment ago was, there's absolutely nothing on here in any, given all of these, what are there, 7? No, there's 9, 8. Of these bullet items, there isn't anything COG, you can't fit that COG does into one of these.
That's the goal.
And if that's the goal, you've accomplished it with what's here on the page.
Right.
So now the critical task is, okay, everything that COG does is on this page in one form or another.
Right.
Now we need to rank what's most important.
Which we don't have to do tonight.
We don't have to do that.
That's what I'm trying to say, is my understanding at executive committee was that we can throw that out tonight, but was that we're just looking at it and agreeing on the priorities themselves, and then that will come back to executive committee? Is that not that's not your understanding?
I only was going off of what was
Rich.
in Rich's comments. That was the only.
Prioritize them.
I know he did, but,
Okay.
We need further clarification.
like literally at executive committee, we could not come up with a way that we could do that equitably. And so we just also, if somebody doesn't agree with one and we all spend time prioritizing them and then it goes back and they're not already agreed upon, where's the priority,
I get you. No,
Yeah.
Yeah, from that standpoint then, if there is additional time where there will be some consensus around how to prioritize these, then then you're right, you only need to agree to what these are.
right. Do you have a comment?
No, I'm thinking.
Okay. I'm just reading the follow-up very quickly to make sure that I'm not, sometimes I leave these meetings and
I
I'm
guess
left
one of the
thinking
things
something
that,
totally
speaking to your point, Adam, each municipality may have a different ranking, and ultimately, how will the conflict in ranking for different townships or municipalities be? There's not a process in place for how to negotiate the ranking.
Okay, so the general forum requested that any consensus board council feedback on the priorities listed below be submitted. So right now they're looking for feedback on the draft priorities. So that is what I had heard. Okay,
So we've done that.
and we've done that. Yeah. Okay. So is staff comfortable summarizing our comments, or I can go
Well,
back
I mean,
and summarize them
was
and we can
there-
agree?
My only question was, is there a consensus to combine? There's 4 items here.
I don't say we should combine them. I say if they're going to be separate, they need to further define what they mean. Say, like a question, is this, would this fall under this category? If not, tell us why not.
Okay.
Does that sound reasonable?
No, I get that.
Okay,
Yep.
great. All right, any more discussion on that? That was good. That was a difficult conversation to have without the finance committee representative with us, so I appreciate everybody sort of stumbling along in that. Okay, next, staff informatives. None?
I don't think we had.
We didn't even have any. Sorry, thank you. Council staff, other matters.
Nothing in there.
We did talk about bringing up the residential ordinance. Did you want to speak to that quickly?
Yeah, I didn't know if we just wanted to add it as a future agenda item. You know, and perhaps give folks that want to come talk to it some time to talk to it.
Yeah, if I may, I would only suggest that we target sometime, one of the meetings in April.
Yeah.
To get that, kind of kick that off. Again, that's kind of around the time frame that we had originally considered. We've had an opportunity to work with this a little bit, and we will have some feedback. So if we could maybe start that the second meeting of April, bring that back.
Yep.
If that's
Sounds good.
appropriate for council.
Do we all feel okay about that? Okay, great. Sounds good.
Carla, if I may.
Please.
Just throw one other element in here. Just so you're aware, we did release this week the memo to staff about the capital improvement program, asking them to start compiling their list, which had already started in different iterations. As part of that, as we've discussed a little bit at this level, we're going to try to do things a little bit differently this time, try to start embedding some strategic planning. So it kind of dovetails on where we just were with that item. So just kind of planning that in your minds, that probably coming up here either later this month or early in April, we'll be reaching out and asking about work session, potentially more than one, to talk a little bit of strategic planning as it informs the CIP. So I just wanted to throw that out there. That process has started, it's underway. We're still trying to hold to the same timeline of an adopted CIP right around the middle of June, but it may be a little more intensive than we've done in past years.
Yeah. Yeah, let's get those.
Let's do it. Are we gonna do like value stream mapping and exercises on the wall? Yeah, let's do it.
All right, well, how about we just get the doodle poll? Wow. Before we get into anything further.
Process mapping.
All right, council, staff, other matters, anything else for the good of the order? All right, without any more, I'll accept a movement to adjourn.
So moved.
All right, meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone. 4:10. We did it.